Recording in progress.
Hybrid. There will be appointments. Appointments of hallowed.
The session is called to order. Please stand for singing of our Philippine national anthem.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupit, di ka pasisingil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong paghaw, may nilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pang may magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng waraming pagsikap, buhay ay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pagmay mga ating pagmamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please remain standing for a minute of prayer and meditation. Majority Leader,
Mr. Speaker, I move that we call the roll of members.
the Secretary General is directed to call the roll of members.
Roll call of members, honorable representatives. Abalos, Abante, Abunda, Acharon, Asidre, Acop, Adjong, Advincula, Agaraw, Alba, Albano, Almario, Almonte, Alonte, Alvarez Jose, Alvarez Mercedes, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante, Amatong, Angara, Aquino, Aquino Magsaysay, Arbison, Arenas, Arrogancia, Asisio, Atayde, Aumentado, Balindong, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Lim, Benitez, Bernos, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondok, Bugalon, Bordado, Bosita, Briones, Brosas, Buhain, Bulot Begtang, Bustos, Cabredo, Cagas, Kahayon Uy, Calderon, Calixto, Campos, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castro Franz, Castro Jing, Celeste, Chan, Chato, Chua, Chungalaw, Ko Angelica Natasha, Ko Elizalde, Ko Pilar, Ko Wangko Jaime, Ko Wangko Mark, Colada, Collantes, Corvera, Cruz Ambrosio, Cruz Ricardo, Cuba, Quaresma, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Dayanghirang, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor, Del Mar, De Los Santos, Dimaporo Muhammad Khalid, Dimaporo City Amina, Dionisio, Domingo, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael Carlos, D. Ian Paul, Ecleo, Emano, Enciso, Enverga, Escudero, Espares, Espina, Estrella, Yudela, Fariñas, Fernandez, Ferrer Antonio, Ferrer Juliet Marie, Flores, Fortes, Frasco, Fresnedi, Pentebella, Galeos, Garcia Albert, Garcia Dante, Garcia Jose Orturo, Garcia Maria Angela, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garjola, Garin, Gasataya, Gato, Go Ed Christopher, Go Mark, Goles, Gomez, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Guico, Ginto, Gullas, Gutierrez, Hagidorn, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera, Horibata, Javier, Ho Olga Ara, Ho Ricardo, Ho Wilton, Honghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagun Daphne, Lagun Sani, Lara, Lazatin, Lee, Ligarda, Dibanan, Limkay-Chong, Loyola, Luistro, Lumayag, Makapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Magsino, Malapitan, Mangawang, Manikis, Manuel, Maranyon, Marcoleta, Marcos, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Mastura, Matibag, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Mercado Revilla, Miguel, Momo, Morden, Nava, Nisay, Noel, Nograles Juan Fidel Felipe, Nograles Margarita, Nolasco, Waminal, Olaso, Olivares, Hongchuan, Ordanes, Ortega, Juano Dizon, Padiernos, Paduano, Paglas, Palma, Panaligan, Pancho, Panotes, Pascual, Peña, Pimentel, Plaza, Pleito, Primicias Agabas, Pumaren, Puno, Kimbo, Rama, Recto, Regencia, Revilla Brian, Revilla Ramon Jolo, Reyes, Rillo, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez Eulogio, Rodriguez Rufus, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Sieda Marie, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Sali, Salimbangon, Salo, Salvame, Santos, Saulog, Silverio, Singson Richel, Singson Ronald, Singson Mihan, Solon, Soriano, Suwan, Swansing Horacio, Swansing Micaela Angela, Suarez, Talyado, Tamayo, Tambunting, Tan Joseph, Tan Keith Micah, Tan Reynolds Michael, Tan Samir, Tan Stephen James, Tan Tambut, Tan Chay, Tan Watco, Tariela, Chodoro, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Chanco, Cheng, Tolentino, Tulfo Jocelyn, Tulfo Ralph Wendel, Tupas, Tutor, T, Umali, Unabia, Ungab, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso Tuason, Vergara, Versosa, Villa, Villafuerte Luis Raymond, Villafuerte Miguel Luis, Villanueva, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Villago, Yap Christiantel, Yap Christopherson, Yap Edvic, Yap Eric, Yu Divina Grace, Yu Jaisel Victoria, Yulo, Zamora Amparo Maria, Zamora Maria Carmen, Zamora Isabel Maria, Zubiri. Mr. Speaker, the roll call shows that 309 members responded to the call.
With 309 members responding to the call, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, considering that the copies of Journal Number 54, dated February 20, 2023, were already distributed to the members, I move that we dispense with the reading of the same and approve the said journal.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. Journal number 54, dated February 20, 2023, is by approved. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move that we now proceed with the reference of business and request that the Secretary General be directed to read the titles of bills and resolutions on first reading, as well as communications and committee reports.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the bills resolution on first reading, as well as the communication and reports, committee reports for referral to the appropriate committee.
Reference of business, bills on first reading. House Bill 7205, providing a national eye service program for the elderly with functional visual impairments by Representatives Yap Eric Duterte and Yap Edvic.
To the Special Committee on Senior Citizens.
House Bill 7207, providing for early voting by qualified senior citizens and PWDs in national and local election by Representatives Revilla Ramonjolo, Mercado Revilla, and Revilla Bryan.
To the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms.
House Bill 7211, converting the LTO Extension Office located in Taguig City into a regular LTO District Office by Representative Zamora Amparo Maria.
To the Committee on Transportation.
House Bill 7212, strengthening the discount and privileges of senior citizens, PWDs, and students in digital transactions by Representative Zamora Amparo Maria.
To the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries.
House Bill 7213, rationalizing regular holidays and special non-working days in the country by Representative Fernandez.
To the Committee on Revision of Laws.
House Bill 7214, making available electronic medical records of all patients in hospitals and clinics, establishing the Electronic Medical Record Center under DOH by Representative Lacson.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill 7215, converting the Salvacion Opus Eniguez Memorial Provincial Hospital in Maasin City, Southern Leyte, into the Salvacion Opus Eniguez Memorial Medical Center by Representatives Noel and Lacson Noel.
To the Committee on Health.
House Bill 7216, prescribing the universal design principles, standards, specifications, and policies for the creation of barrier-free environments by Representative Chato.
To the Special Committee on Persons with Disabilities.
House Bill 7217, to promote the rights of nature in the Philippines by Representative Chato.
To the Committee on Ecology.
House Bill 7218, regulating the planning, design, construction, occupancy, and maintenance of public and private buildings and enacting a new building act by Representative Haresco.
To the Committee on Public Works and Highways.
House Bill 7219, to improve higher education institutions through criteria of a development research fund by Representative Suarez.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill 7220, declaring July 27 of every year a special national non-working holiday, amending RA 9645, the commemoration of the founding anniversary of Iglesia ni Cristo by Representative Goles.
To the Committee on Revision of Laws.
House Bill 7221, improving the COMELEC by increasing the manpower complement in its field offices, providing office spaces separate and independent from LGUs by Representative Goles.
To the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms.
House Bill 7222, improving the procedure for registration of voters and adopting system of online registration by Representative Goles.
To the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms.
House Bill 7223, institutionalizing the implementation of cyber education program, creating the Cyber Education Development Management Corporation by Representative Bordado.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture and Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill 7224, to prohibit discrimination on the basis of disability in connection with admission to an institution of higher education by Representative Bordado.
To the Committee on Higher and Technical Education.
House Bill 7225, requiring the teaching of basic road safety and comprehensive driver's education as part of the curriculum of the K-12 program by Representatives Revilla Bryan, Mercado Revilla, and Revilla Ramonjolo.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 7226, establishing a mandatory evacuation center in all cities, provinces, and municipalities by Representatives Revilla Bryan, Mercado Revilla, and Revilla Ramonjolo.
The Committee on Disaster Resilience.
House Bill 7227, mandating the construction until completion of Maasin Airport in Maasin City, Southern, by Representative Mercado.
To the Committee on Transportation.
House Bill 7228, providing for a comprehensive local government calamity fund by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Disaster Resilience.
House Bill 7229, institutionalizing installment payment schemes on basic utility bills by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Disaster Resilience.
House Bill 7230, amending Sections 10, 18, and 20 of the Urban Development and Housing Act of 1992 by Representatives Copilar and Benitez.
To the Committee on Housing and Urban Development.
Resolutions. House Resolution 790, urging the Committee on Tourism to invite certain executive agencies for assessing and identifying existing government policies, rules, and practices which may hamper the Department of Tourism from fully discharging its mandate by Representative Chato.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 791, urging the House of Representatives through the Special Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts and other appropriate committees to conduct an inquiry in the state of the Philippine performing arts industry and other related industries by Representative De Venecia, Del Mar, Barbers, Rodriguez Rufus, Recto, Maceda, Benitez, Villarica, Bautista Lim, Conghun, Veloso Tuazon, Asidre, Robes, Vergara, Quaresma, Nograles, Margarita, Revilla, Bryan, Legarda, Alonte, Aumentado, Bolilla, Fernandez, Barba, Zamora, Amparo Maria, Singson, Mihan, Velasco, Frasco, Garcia, Jose Arturo, Rama, Kimbo, Mercado Revilla, Versosa, and Co. Angelica Natasha.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 792, congratulating Filipino chef Joanne C. for winning the 2023 Asia's Best Female Chef Award by Representatives De Venecia, Conghun, Benitez, Nograles, Margarita, Barba, Co. Angelica Natasha, Rodriguez Rufus, Villaraza Suarez, Magsino, Bautista Lim, Velasco, Del Mar, Singson, Mihan, Arenas, Rama, Garcia, Jose Arturo, Villarica, Hernandez, Alonte, Kimbo, Frasco, Fernandez, Vargas, Bolilla, Mercado Revilla, Gomez, Maceda, Cua, Robes, Quaresma, Zamora, Amparo Maria, Villar, Veloso Tuazon, Tolentino, Aumentado, Horibata, and Go Mark.
To the Special Committee on Creative Industry and the Performing Arts.
House Resolution 793, congratulating and commending Filipino-American director Kyla Abuda Galangs with her film titled When You Left Me on That Boulevard for winning the short film grand prize at the Sundance Festival in 2023 by Representatives De Venecia, Del Mar, Barbers, Rodriguez Rufus, Recto, Maceda, Benitez, Villarica, Bautista Lim, Conghun, Veloso Tuazon, Asidre, Robes, Vergara, Quaresma, Nograles, Margarita, Revilla, Bryan, Legarda, Alonte, Aumentado, Bolilla, Fernandez, Barba, Zamora, Amparo Maria, Singson, Mihan, Velasco, Frasco, Garcia, Jose Arturo, Rama, Kimbo, Mercado Revilla, Versosa, and Co. Angelica Natasha.
To the Special Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts.
House Resolution 794, expressing the profound sympathy and condolences of the House for the demise of national scientist Dr. Angel Chua Alcala by Representative Tambunting.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 795, commending and congratulating E.J. Obiena for winning the gold medal at the Orlen Copernicus Cup in Poland by Representative Tambunting.
Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 796, congratulating and commending Maria Luisa Varela for winning the Miss Planet International pageant by Representative Tambunting.
Committee on Rules.
Communication. Letter dated February 15, 2023 of the BSP Acting Bank Officer 6, Office of the General Counsel and Legal Services, transmitting to the House duly certified copies of certain BSP issuances.
To the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, under the calendar of business of the day, I move that we consider House Bill number 7185 as contained in Committee Report number 318 submitted by the Committee under Justice.
Is there any objection? There is none. The Chair directed the Secretary General to read the title of the bill and the title of the committee reports.
House Bill 7185, an act granting Philippine citizenship to Kyle Douglas Jennerman.
Majority Leader,
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of sponsorship and debate.
there is a motion to open the period of sponsorship and debate. Is there any objection? The Chair is none. Motion is approved. Majority Leader,
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Vice Chairperson of the Committee on Justice, the Honorable Jonathan Keith Flores, to be recognized to begin the sponsorship of the measure.
Congressman Jonathan Flores is now recognized for your sponsorship speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we move that the explanatory note of House Bill number 7185 as contained in Committee Report number 318 be adopted as the sponsorship speech of this bill, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Majority Leader,
Mr. Speaker, there being no members who wish to interpolate, I move that we close the period of sponsorship and debate.
the period of sponsorship and debate is now closed. Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved. Majority Leader,
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of amendments.
the period of amendment is now open. Is there any objection? The Chair is done. Motion is approved. Majority Leader,
Mr. Speaker, there being no committee on the period of amendments, I move that we close the period of amendments.
we will close the period of amendments. Is there any objection? The Chair is none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader,
Mr. Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading House Bill number 7185. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
there is a motion to approve House Bill number 7185. Those who are in favor, please say aye. And those who are against, please say nay. The ayes have it. So House Bill number 7185 and Committee Report number 318 is hereby approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, under the calendar business of the day, I move that we consider House Bill Resolution number 7206 as contained in the committee report number 319 submitted by the Committee on Revision of Laws.
Is there any objection? The Secretary General can now read the title of the proposed House Bill.
House Bill 7206, an act declaring February 23 of every year a special working holiday in the entire country to be known as the National Rotary Day.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of sponsorship and debate.
The period of sponsorship and debate is now open. Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Edward Maceda via Zoom.
Congressman Edward Maceda of Manila is now recognized via Zoom.
Hello.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I be heard?
Yes, Mr. Congressman, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Madam Majority Leader. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'm standing in this august body to hope for the full support of my colleagues for the measure that would greatly recognize the invaluable contribution of the Rotary Club of the Philippines, the entire Philippine community. House Bill 7206 seeks to declare every 23rd of February of every year as the National Rotary Day. This to honor and commemorate the immeasurable charity works of all Rotarians in the country. The Rotary Club is a local chapter of Rotary International and has been present in the country since 1919, or more than 100 years ago. They have spearheaded numerous humanitarian and social-civic activities that further promotes the nation's welfare and improves the lives of many Filipinos. They are truly an effective ally of the government in nation building for our country and our brother and sister Filipinos. There are more than 900 Rotary clubs all over the country today that continue to serve our citizens through charitable acts and community service. They have contributed some notable programs like educational assistance, medical missions and health missions, especially during the time of the pandemic, and cleanup drives, tree planting, and the like, which help the nature and the community. It's for these reasons, Mr. Speaker, that I am hoping for the immediate passage of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we close this period of sponsorship and debate.
We will now close the period of sponsorship and debate. Is there any objection? The chair is none. Motion is carried.
Mr.
Majority
Speaker, I move that we open period of amendments.
We will now open the period of amendments. Is there any objections? The chair is none. Motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, there
Please
be no committee or period of amendments. I move that we close the period of amendments.
We will now close the period of amendments. Is there any objection? Chair is none. Motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading House Bill number 7206. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to approve. House Bill number 7206 contains committee report number 319. Those who are in favor, please say aye. And those who are against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill number 7206 containing committee report number 319 is now approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for quick suspension.
Session suspended. Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, before we proceed, I move that we recognize the guests of the Honorable Rufus Rodriguez, and they are as followed. Vice Mayor of Cagayan de Oro City, Honorable Jocelyn Bebot Rodriguez. Attorney Regine Rodriguez, Chief of Staff of the Vice Mayor Rodriguez. Jordan J. Antonio, Lancer Asinio, Michael Villamor, Craig Tibon, Mr. Raynor Fulgencio. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
To the guests of former Deputy Speaker and now Chairman, Rufus Rodriguez. To the guests of Congressman Rodriguez, please stand to be recognized. Palakpakan po natin. Welcome to the House of the People. Thank you. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we also recognize the guest of the Honorable Speaker, His Excellency Ricardo Luis Bocalandro, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Argentina to the Philippines.
To the guests of our dear Speaker, Speaker Ferdinand Martin Gomez Romualdez, the Ambassador His Excellency Ricardo Luis Bocalandro, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Argentine Republic of the Philippines. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend session for a few minutes to allow our members to greet the Ambassador.
Session suspended. Session is resumed.
Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, before we proceed, I move that we recognize the guest of the Honorable Chodorico Paresco from the 2nd District of Aklan.
To the guests of Congressman Chodorico Aresco Jr. of Aklan. To the guests, welcome to the House of Representatives. Palakpakan po natin ang guest ni Congressman Aresco. Welcome to the House of the People. Thank you, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for a brief recess.
Session suspended. Sessions resume. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, under business of the day, I move that we consider House Bill number 7126 as contained in Committee Report number 315, submitted by the Committee on Public Works and Highways. As copies of this bill have been previously distributed to the members, may I request that the Secretary General be instructed to read the title of the bill without prejudice in the insertion thereof into the records of the text.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. The Secretary General is directed to read the title of House Bill number 7126 and contains the committee report number 315.
House Bill 7126, an act renaming the National Highway stretching from Barangay San Juan Bautista, traversing through barangays Tagongtong, Abukayan, Hiwakloy, Digdikon, Balaynan, and Payatan in the municipality of Goa, Barangays Lupi, Sierra Nevada, Binalay, Camagong, Salvacion, San Roque, San Ramon, Sagrada, La Medalla, Magsaysay, and San Vicente in the municipality of Tenambak, up to Barangay Nilayahan in the municipality of Siruma, all in the province of Camarines Sur, as Speaker Arnulfo Noli Fuentebella Highway.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of Chairman Romeo Momo Sr. of Surigao del Sur, I move that we adopt the explanatory note on House Bill 7126 as his sponsorship speech.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of sponsorship and debate.
The period of sponsorship and debate is now open. Is there any objection? The chair is none. Motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, considering that there are no interpellators, I move that we close the period of sponsorship and debate.
We will now close the period of sponsorship and debate. Is there any objection? The motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of amendments.
The period of amendment is now open. Is there any objection? The chair is none. Motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no committee or individual amendments to be introduced, I move that we close the period of amendments.
We will now close the period of amendments. Is there any objection? The chair is none. Motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we vote on second reading House Bill number 7126.
There is a motion to approve House Bill number 7126, Committee Report number 315. All those who are in favor, please say aye. And those who are against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill number 7126 and Committee Report 315 is hereby approved on second reading. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move for a brief suspension.
Session suspended.
Yes, boss. Hindi ko dediretso sa con-con, di ba? O ba? Hindi, di ba? Sige. Sige, third reading ba?
Sessions resume. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, under the calendar of business for the day, I move that we consider House Bill number 7027 under Committee Report number 308 submitted by the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The Secretary General is now directed to read the title of House Bill number 7027 and Committee Report 308.
House Bill number 7027, an act providing preferential appointment to appointive officers and employees holding valid appointments to the new positions in the approved staffing pattern following a government reorganization, amending for the purpose Section 4 of Republic Act number 6656.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of sponsorship and debate.
The period of sponsorship and debate is now open. Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the chairperson of the Committee on Civil Service and Professional Regulation, Representative Christine Alexi Tutor, to sponsor the bill.
Congresswoman Tutor, you are now recognized, ma'am.
Mr. Speaker, fellow members of this august chamber, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to present House Bill number 7027 under Committee Report number 308 entitled An Act Amending Section 4 of Republic Act number 6656, or an act to protect the security of tenure of civil service officers and employees in the implementation of government reorganization. Thank you for the immediate inclusion in the order of business of today's session, and I fervently hope and pray that this meaningful proposed legislation that this representation authored be considered. Section 4 of Republic Act number 6656, or an act to protect the security of tenure of civil officers and employees in the implementation of government reorganization, and to read. Officers and employees holding permanent appointments shall be given preference for appointment to the new positions in the approved staffing pattern comparable to their former position, or in case there are not enough comparable positions, to positions next lower in rank. House Bill number 5039, as substituted by House Bill number 7027, under Committee Report number 308, simply propose not just to ensure the security of tenure of appointed officers and employees holding valid appointment, but also to allow them placement to the next higher vacant positions, which is not provided under the existing law, Republic Act number 6656. Also, under the current law, only after the entire process of reorganization is completed can employees be considered for promotion during regular hiring. Moreover, they will have to compete with internal and external applicants to the vacant positions. In other words, Mr. Speaker and fellow members, the proposed measure seeks to allow promotion during reorganization as long as that officer or employee meets the qualification requirements of the next higher vacant position. The said measure during committee deliberation of the Civil Service Commission and other stakeholders from the public sector groups expressed their ardent support and sought the immediate approval of the legislation. In view of the foregoing, Mr. Speaker, esteemed colleagues, this humble representation urges this august body to adopt House Bill number 7027 entitled An Act Amending Section 4 of Republic Act number 6656, or an act to protect the security of tenure of civil service officers and employees in the implementation of government reorganization. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Congressman Christine Alexi Tutor. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Representative Franz Castro for her interpellation.
Congresswoman Franz Castro is now recognized. Please proceed, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat, sa ating mga colleagues, at sa ating mga kababayan. So before I move to my interpellation, Mr. Chair, I manifest that my name be strike out as strike out in the bill as sponsor of the bill. I move, Mr. Speaker.
So, there is a motion by Congresswoman Prasco, Majority Leader.
We join the manifestation and the motion of the Representative Castro, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion and the manifestation is approved.
Thank you,
Please proceed,
Mr.
Congresswoman
Speaker.
Franz.
Okay, there being because our constituents who are government employees are not in full support of the bill, Mr. Speaker. So, would the sponsor, the beautiful sponsor of the bill, Representative Tutor, yields to some of my clarificatory questions?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, on the title of the bill, So this is an amendment to Republic Act number 6656. And it is very prevalent in the bill, in the title itself, the word valid appointments. So in section 4 of the said RA 6656, okay, so we have there appointive officers and employees holding permanent, so we replace it with valid appointments. So maybe the first question, Mr. Chair, is what is the difference between officers and employees holding permanent appointments and officers holding valid appointments? So in other words, Mr. Chair, bakit pinalitan yung valid, yung permanent ng valid?
Congresswoman
May I move
France,
for a
we'll just wait for
suspension?
the
May I move for a
for the
suspension?
sponsor. Madam Sponsor, are you ready now? Please proceed to answer the question of Congresswoman France.
I move for a quick, brief suspension.
Session suspended.
Civil service law. Meron bang invalid ako?
Mr. Chair, my time is running. Can we stop that first?
We suspended tayo, di ba? Suspended naman tayo. So, 1 minute and 1 second yung lumaka. Di ba, tatandaan ko yan, ma'am. Suspend naman tayo eh. Session resume. Madam Sponsor.
Mr. Speaker, so this is in regards with valid appointments and versus the permanent appointments. So when we say permanent appointment, it refers to a kind of status. As to valid appointment, these are appointments issued to a person who meets the qualification requirement of the position to which they are appointed to, which includes the appropriate eligibility and as validated or approved by the Civil Service Commission. That's the difference, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you for that clarification, pero medyo vague pa rin, Mr. Speaker, yung definition sa akin ng valid. Kasi when we are appointed to a position, that means regular permanent position. Am I right?
Yes po.
So that means yung regular permanent position na yan, it's been, we have a process of validation.
Yes po, but
So
not all.
why is it, so Mr. Speaker, so why is it we replaced permanent with the valid? Kasi if we are talking of the same no status, tingin ko Mr. Speaker, yung regular permanent position. So that's defines kung ano talaga yung status ng isang empleyado or officer.
Mr. Speaker, not all permanent. Ito po, Mr. Speaker, not all permanent officers and employees can have a valid appointment because they still, even though you are permanent, but still you have to undergo the civil service guidelines in order to have a valid appointment. Valid is the act of the approval. Merong approval from the Civil Service Commission. It doesn't mean that you are permanent or a regular, you already possess a valid appointment. Mr. Speaker.
Yes, so lalong lumabo yung definition, Mr. Speaker. So, kung ako ay permanent, binigyan ako ng Civil Service Commission ng position na regular permanent. Ano ba? Regular permanent teacher 1. So mangangamba ako dahil meron pang sinasabing valid appointments. Kasi kung meron nang ibinigay sa akin na civil service, like regular permanent teacher 1, so that means mangangamba pa ako kasi baka hindi pa ako mag-possess noong sinasabing mga requirements for me to have a valid appointments. So yun ba ang effect nun, Mr. Chair? Kasi parang magulo yun dun sa mga empleyado.
Mr. Speaker, hindi naman po naguguluhan because it is very simple. If we have a permanent status, then we have to make sure that the HR can issue a certain appointment, that valid appointment coming from the Civil Service Commission, that they possess the qualification requirement from the CSC. Because it doesn't mean, sa sinabi ko nga, not all permanent employees and officials have valid appointments. They still have to process according to the guidelines of the CSC. Kasi meron naman mga permanent employees and officials na pag nagpa-process sa CSC will become invalid. Because hindi nila makuha yung eligibility or they fall short, they have deficiencies in that certain area. Mr.
So
Speaker.
that means, Mr. Speaker, in the civil service rules and regulations, there are invalid appointment. There are invalid appointments by the regular permanent position.
Yes po, Mr. Speaker,
So
there
can
are.
you give an example, Mr. Chair? So, alimbawa nga, ako, teacher. Teacher 1 na ako, binigyan ako ng civil service ng you are appointed as regular permanent position to teacher 1. So, meron pa ba akong aantayin as a permanent, as possessing a permanent position in the DepEd? Meron pa ba akong aantayin na tinatawag nating valid, valid appointment? Kasi hindi pa ba ako nagpo-possess ng mga required na mga qualification?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Ganito kasi yan. Only a valid appointment can vest rights. It is not enough that an appointment was issued by the appointing authority. So merong mga certain cases po tayo na pagdating sa Civil Service Commission, kahit permanent ka, regular yung position mo, because you fall short of that eligibility or a certain document or a certain, sabi nga, requirement, qualification requirement, you fall short on it, hindi ka mabigyan ng valid appointment. Maging invalid. Tapos, matatanggal.
So, pwedeng ibig sabihin nito, Mr. Chair, matatanggal ako sa trabaho.
Yes.
Kasi binigyan niya na ako ng permanent, regular position, knowing that I have already passed all the necessary requirements or basic requirements that need to be, that need to secure my security of tenure being a permanent, regular employee, dahil wala pa akong valid appointments, so ibig sabihin matatanggal ako sa trabaho. So halimbawa, si teacher 1, so ibig sabihin may possibility pa, Mr. Chair, na si teacher 1, dahil wala naman siyang nakalagay doon sa kanyang appointment na valid, so matatanggal siya sa trabaho. So what would be the basis for that? Kasi parang ito ay nag-i-imply na or nag-i-effect ng insecurity of tenure. Kasi pag meron ka ng regular permanent position, secured ka na nga dun sa position mo. Unlike the COS, unlike the JOS na meron talaga silang certain period of time. Pero kapag ikaw ay nabigyan na ng permanent position, so that means you are secured of your tenure unless with the due process and with the due cost, you will be expelled from the position.
Mr. Speaker, ganito po kasi yan. Appointments, ito yung proseso ng Civil Service Commission. Appointments will be submitted to the CSC. After 15 days from issuance, if invalidated by CSC, the employee will cease from service. But then, you are given time naman by the Civil Service Commission to comply with the deficiencies, Mr. Speaker. Hindi naman po yun agad-agad na matanggal ka. You'll be given time to comply.
Mr. Speaker. Okay, sige. Ganito po yung process. So, when I apply in an agency and I fulfill the necessary requirement, even the civil service examination and so on, so the appointing officer will give me an appointment and it will be submitted to the civil service office for their for their validation, kasi hindi ka naman bibigyan ng appointment kung hindi ito validated ng civil service, at hindi ka rin pwedeng hindi ka rin naman pwedeng mag-start ng trabaho mo sa government kasi wala kang sweldo. Kasi may mga ganyan, Mr. Speaker, no? May mga teacher na nagtsatsaga minsan na parang involunteer status sila, pero yung bayad sa kanila ay when their appointment is validated or kapag nabigyan na sila ng regular permanent position. So syempre, parang sinasabi natin dito na itong sinasabi nating pag-define ng appointing officers noong appointments na dapat ay validated. Ito naman ay SOP ito ng civil service. So ang point ko lang dito, Mr. Speaker, ay yung kasiguruhan ko ba na binigyan na ako ng appointment ng ng civil service office o ng civil service. Tapos mag-aantay pa ba ako na ito ay i-declare na valid? Samantalang may nakalagay na doon, regular permanent position.
Mr. Speaker, we don't wait naman po kung kailan tayo matatanggal sa position natin. We have to process sa mga according to the guidelines of the CSC. That's why kahit na permanent tayo, we still have to get that valid appointment in accordance with the CSC guidelines and laws.
Yes, and that permanent, the word permanent there implies na validate na yung appointments before you go to public service.
Mr. Speaker, it does not presume that when you are permanent, you already have a valid appointment. Kasi nga, yung agency, yung kumukuha sa inyo, nag-a-appoint. So you still have to undergo under the CSC guidelines in order to get a valid appointment.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker.
So therefore, doon po sa pinipirmahan ng mga government employees and officers, so halimbawa binigyan sila ng say invalid appointment nung kanilang agency. So they would have to wait and receive first yung valid appointment na nakalagay. So ano pong mangyayari doon sa appointment? Kasi Mr. Speaker, kung familiar po ba ang ating sponsor doon sa binibigay na appointment ng civil service, yung format po na ibinibigay. Kasi wala naman nakalagay doon na valid appointments. O nakalagay lang doon, regular permanent appointments.
Mr. Speaker, hindi naman yung sa civil service, in the first place, hindi si civil service yung nag-a-appoint na maging permanent siya. Yung agency, nagbibigay siya ng permanent position, but then that permanent position is still subject for validation of the CSC guidelines.
Okay, so tama nga po 'yon. So kaya lang kino-question ko lang po dito yung salitang valid na pinalitan natin ng permanent, kasi permanent position connotes the validity of the appointments. 'Di ba? So why do we have to to replace yung word na permanent? Kasi pag sinabi nating permanent position, validated diyan ng civil service. Validated dyan or nirecommend dyan ng appointing officer.
Mr. Speaker, as I have said and reiterated, yung permanent position po, it does not presume that you have already a valid appointment. So you still have to undergo according to the CSC guidelines. And that's the rule, that's the law.
Well, may problema ako dyan, Mr. Speaker. So binigyan ka na ng permanent position. So nangangamba tuloy ang ang may hawak noong binigay na appointment na na ibig sabihin mag-undergo ka pa ng iba pang process ng civil service before you you have to have a valid appointments. Okay, so yun po yung isa sa yung isa sa major problem ko dito sa pagpapalit nung salitang permanent to valid appointments, Mr. Speaker. At sinasabi natin dito, so ang ibig sabihin niyan, mangangamba po yung mga bagong bagong mga appointed na mga empleyado natin na nanggaling na doon sa civil service yung mga papel nila dahil hindi pa naman pala sila permanent, hindi secured ang kanilang tenure. So kailangan pa nilang mag-undergo na isa pang process sa civil service para ma-validate ito.
Mr. Speaker, ever since na meron tayong Civil Service Commission, it's already been the guidelines, it's already been the law. But hindi naman po tayo kabahan dyan kasi on Section 4, on the second paragraph of it, andun yung protection. It states there, no new employees shall be taken in until all permanent officers and employees have been appointed, including temporary and casual employees who possess the necessary qualification requirements, and so on and so forth.
Yes,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Speaker, darating tayo dyan. So, yun lang po, yung valid na yan, na as versus yung salitang permanent na position or appointments. Okay? So, bakit po kaya binago, Mr. Speaker, sa batas yung salitang permanent to valid? Kasi ang pwedeng susunod na isipin dyan, meron bang mga invalid appointments na ibinibigay ang civil service?
Majority Leader,
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend session for a few minutes.
session suspended.
Oo. Ma-invalidate po ba yung permanent? Palitan yung permanent sa valid. Meron bang invalidate?
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Representative Alexi Tutor to continue sponsorship of the bill.
Congresswoman Tutor, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yung gusto lang natin is, we just want the Civil Service Commission na magsabi na valid yung appointment. Para po madalian na naman po, yung gusto po natin is, from the word permanent, we can do a valid permanent appointment. If that is amenable, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Sir Speaker, baka pwede na po ako diyang pumayag. Dahil kasi pag tinanggal po natin yung permanent, that connotes kasi security of tenure for our government employees. Kaya kung matatanggal niyo yung word na permanent doon, talagang mag-aalangan, matatakot yung government employees na hindi pa pala valid yung aking appointment na kahit na nanggaling yan sa civil service. Kasi ang ano ko dito, Mr. Speaker, ang assumption ko dito, yung appointments ay validated na ng civil service. Okay? From the appointing officer or from the appointing agency, LGU man yan or NGA, National Government Agencies. Anyway, sige, siguro pwede na akong pumayag doon sa valid permanent appointments. Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Okay. So, to continue, Mr. Speaker, so sabi dito no, on section 4 pa rin tayo no, kasi doon yung merong mga amendments. Or the next higher rank position. So, appointive officers and employees holding a valid permanent appointment shall be given preference for appointment to the new positions in the approved staffing pattern of the comparable rank to their former or the next higher rank position. So, pwede po bang i-explain ito, no? So, yung employee na meron siyang valid permanent appointments, dito sinasabi natin, they are preferred. So, they are the priority. Tama po ba?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
For the next higher rank. So, ito, in preparation, doon sa reorganization ng government.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Okay? In case there are not enough comparable positions or positions next higher in rank, there shall be given a preference to the appointment of to the positions next lower in rank. Okay? So, alam niyo po, Mr. Speaker, in any reorganization, sa experience po ng ating mga government employees sa reorganization, madalang mangyari ito. In fact, pag nagkaroon ng reorganization, downsizing ang nangyayari, nagkakatanggalan ng trabaho, or na napupunta yung ating mga empleyado doon sa ibang sa ibang mga agency or position. Tama po ba, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. So, kaya ito, provided that the placement shall be made in accordance with the revised implementing rules and regulations of this act. So, ano po ba yung so yung next question ko po ay doon sa ipapasok na revised IRR. So, may problema po tayo dito, no? Kung worry po natin dito na baka mabago na naman ang intent ng batas o hindi kaya ay maglagay ng mga additional requirements para maging quote-unquote qualified ang empleyado. So, meron pa po ba na halimbawa na-appoint na sila, meron pa po ba na mga additional requirements para doon sa appointment nung isang empleyado, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, as to the revised IRR naman po, we are going to sit down and discuss with that naman po. So, it's better if we're going to discuss it and whatever revisions that need to be there, then we're going to take consideration, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so meron po ba tayong number, Mr. Speaker, kung ilan po yung maapektuhan ng mga empleyado dito doon sa reorganization? Meron na po ba tayo number?
Mr. Speaker, wala naman po tayong tatanggalin in this. Kasi this provision nga, yung sinasabi natin, in the event of reorganization, tatlo kasi yung pwedeng gawin natin sa employee. So it's either to the comparable or the same rank, then the higher in rank, tapos lower in rank. So tatlo yun. So in short, we have to cater everyone during the reorganization.
Majority Leader,
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend session for a few minutes.
session suspended.
Basta simulan lang natin yung RD. Hanggat maubos yung para yung kakainin ng ibang bill na yun. Oo nga eh. Sabi niya nga sa akin. Ayaw na. Alam po mo, kaya niya
Session to resume. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 7027.
Is there any objection? Chair is none. Motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended. Primo. Jo. Tawag ka.
Afternoon.
No, okay na.
Dropping from... Siguro.
The Majority Leader will read first. Dito yung talking lines. I think that's the other one. We're just reading an excerpt from the COMELEC resolution. Okay. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of a certified true copy of a document entitled Excerpt from the Minutes of the Continuing Session of the Commission on Elections held on February 16, 2023, acknowledging the expulsion of Representative Nicolas V. Enciso VIII from the Bicol Saro party list and giving due course to the nominations of the new nominees of the said party list. In view of the aforementioned document, I move that the Secretary General be instructed to drop from the roll of members Representative Nicolas V. Enciso VIII.
Is there any objection to the motion? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. The Secretary General is directed to drop from the roll of members Representative Nicolas V. Enciso III.
Mr. Speaker, we are also in receipt of a certified true copy of the Certificate of Proclamation issued by the Commission on Elections, which states that Mr. Brian Raymond S. Yamsuan is the new nominee number 1 of Bicol Saro party list. Mr. Speaker, in view of the said Certificate of Proclamation from the Commission on Election and the earlier approved motion dropping Representative Nicolas V. Enciso VIII from the roll of members of the House of Representatives, I move that we allow
the Honorable Brian Raymond S. Yamsuan to take his oath as representative of Bicol Saro Party List.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. The Secretary General is directed to call Representative Brian Raymond S. Yamsuan of Bicol Saro Party List to take his oath of office before this body. We would like to invite the members of the immediate family of our colleague from Bicol Saro Party List to accompany him to the rostrum for the oath taking. And may I request the members of the House of Representatives and all our guests in the galleries to please rise to witness the oath taking of our new member.
May we call on Honorable Brian Raymond S. Yamsuan to come up here for his oath of office as representative of Bicol Saro Party List before the Honorable Speaker.
Are hardworking. Yes.
The oath of office, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. Your name and residence,
Brian Raymond Yamsuan,
having been elected as a representative of Bicol Saro Party List,
having been elected as a representative of Bicol Saro Party List,
hereby solemnly swear
hereby solemnly swear
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
that I will well and faithfully discharge,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
the duties of my present position,
the duties of my present position,
and of all others
and of all others
I may hereafter hold
that I may hereafter hold
under the Republic of the Philippines,
under the Republic of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the Philippines,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees promulgated by the duly constituted authorities of the Republic of the Philippines,
that I will obey the laws, legal orders, and decrees promulgated by the duly constituted authorities of the Republic of the Philippines,
and that I impose this obligation
that I impose this obligation
upon myself voluntarily,
without
mental reservation,
or
purpose of evasion. So help me God.
So help me God.
Welcome to the 19th Congress.
Thank you very much.
Eh, tatanggal to.
Jack.
Bali, pinaayos ko lang, sir.
Okay.
Mahirap.
Sessions resume. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of a letter dated February 6, 2023, from Representative Jeffrey Soriano of ACT-CIS Party List informing the Honorable Speaker, Ferdinand Martin G. Romualdez, of his resignation as member of the House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, I move that we accept the resignation of Representative Jeffrey Soriano and for the Secretary General to be instructed to drop from the roll of members of the House of Representatives, Representative Soriano, effective immediately.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is approved. The resignation of Representative Jeffrey Soriano of ACT-CIS Party List is accepted. The Secretary General is now instructed to drop Representative Soriano from the roll of members of the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended.
Natanggap lang natin. Ha? Itong papel. Kailan may comment. Lakarin niya ka. Pag di niya nilakad, wala. Nag-meeting ka. Dapat tayo. Lakad natin. Manila.
Nagyayakag yung mga anong tawag sa inyong grupo? Young Guns. Tayo, anong tawag sa atin? Young Guns. Top Guns.
Session resume. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, on the part of the majority, I move to elect the following member to the various committee as follows. To the Committee on Local Government, as chairperson, Alvarez Mercedes K. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The new elected chairperson of local government It's now approved. Congratulations, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended.
Takwan na ninyo. Takwan ninyo. Endorsement. 1 p.m. So then, takwan nila. Endorsement. Alam na din. Nasira. Ha? Nasira.
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, before we proceed, I move that we acknowledge your guests, the guest of Deputy Speaker Vincent Franco D. Frasco. They are Mayor Carlo Villamor of Carmen, Cebu, Mayor Jury Quino of Compostela, Cebu, Vice Mayor Darwin Apas of Liloan, Vice Mayor Froilan Quino of Compostela, Vice Mayor Gerard Villamor of Carmen, Vice Mayor Armel Poro of Catmon, Vice Mayor Richard Strigan of Sogod, Vice Mayor Roy Melgo of Bourbon, Vice Mayor Ali Arquiliano of San Francisco, Vice Mayor Dina Rama of Poro, Vice Mayor Erwin Yu of Tudela, and Vice Mayor Chiselin Maratas of Pilar.
Daghang salamat. Ako ang dakong garbo sa pagpaila sa ato mga halangdong bisita gikan sa probinsya sa Sugbo. Ang ato ang mga opisyales sa Quinto Distrito. Naa of course si Mayor Carlo Villamor, Mayor Jury Quino, Vice Mayor Darwin Apas, Vice Mayor Froilan Quino, Vice Mayor Gerard Villamor, Vice Mayor Armel Poro, Vice Mayor Richard Strigan, Vice Mayor Roy Melgo, Vice Mayor Ali Arquiliano, Vice Mayor Dina Rama, Vice Mayor Erwin Yu, and Vice Mayor Chis Maratas. Maayong pag-abot, welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend session.
Session suspended.
Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Miss Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend session.
Session suspended. Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Article 17, Section 1 of the Constitution, I move that we consider resolution of both Houses number 6 as contained in Committee Report number 323, and for this purpose, may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the resolution.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The Secretary General is now directed to read the title of Resolution, both Houses, number 6, and Committee Report 323.
Resolution of both Houses number 6. Resolution on both Houses calling for a constitutional convention to propose amendments to or revision of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of sponsorship and debate.
The period of its sponsorship and debate is now open. Is there any objection? The chair is none. The motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the chairperson of the Committee on Constitutional Amendments, the Honorable Representative Rufus Rodriguez.
Before I recognize the sponsor, kindly allow me to state that the Filipino people are expecting an exhaustive deliberation of this resolution, both houses number 6. So I recognize now the former Deputy Speaker, the Chairman of the Constitutional Amendment, Congressman Rufus Rodriguez. Sir, you are now recognized.
Thank you very much, our Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Gonzales. I would like to greet also our Speaker of the House of Representatives, Martin Romualdez, President of the Philippine Constitution Association. My esteemed colleagues, my special guest, the Vice Mayor of Cagayan de Oro, my sister, Vice Mayor Jocelyn Bebot Rodriguez, my daughter, Attorney Regine Rodriguez, and also the delegation of the Vice Mayor's office. My dear colleagues, it is my deep honor and pride to sponsor resolution of both houses number 6. Resolution of both houses number 6 calls for a constitutional convention to propose amendments to or revision of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines as contained in Committee Report number 323. This was adopted by the Committee on Constitutional Amendments with an overwhelming vote last Monday, February 20, 2023. Grit, or the power of passion and perseverance, keeps the House of Representatives focused on its mandate to pursue constitutional reforms for the last 24 years, despite the challenges and bad perception in some quarters. Why this sustained effort? Why have this chamber kept on and plowed through the years of study, listening to experts, consulting the people, and deliberating in the committee and plenary on day's end? The compelling reason, Mr. Speaker, is that this institution cannot turn its back from the truth and reality that the 1987 Constitution needs to be reviewed, for it is the third most restrictive in the world, and the most restrictive in ASEAN. Its inflexibility and restrictiveness hampers foreign investments, FDIs, to come in as much as they do in other countries. And the fact remains, Mr. Speaker, as was pointed out by the representative of the Management Association of the Philippines, an association of 1,100 member executives of the Philippines, listed local and multinational companies, that it is only us in Congress which can do this in the exercise of our constituent function reposed upon the Constitution under Article 17, Sections 1 and 2. That is to either propose amendments by itself or call for a constitutional convention to do the same. Let me present to you now, my dear colleagues and the Filipino public, the following data, and some of them have come from the House of Representatives economic think tank, the CPBRD. The Philippine Situationer right now reveals that it has, you can see the screen now, it has a GDP of 7.6%, the highest in the past many years in 2022. It has a total deficit of 1.2 trillion as of the end of November 22, a total outstanding debt of 13 trillion at the end of November 22, an inflation rate of 580% in 2022. January this year is now at 8.7. Budget deficit of 2.23 billion and national debt of 13.64 trillion. Furthermore, businesses closed during the pandemic, which totaled to 14,144. So much so that underemployment in this country registered at 6.16 million Filipinos, an increase of 14.4%. And unemployment at 2.18 million, an increase of 4.20 from the previous year. Mr. Speaker, while we are on the way to recovery, our ASEAN neighbors, notably Vietnam, are already way ahead of us in economic performance. Inflation and fiscal deficits are among the highest in the region, as well as the number of businesses closed. If we are to catch up, we need more FDIs to come in. Now, look at this graph. The yellow is the Philippines. Very small amounts of foreign direct investments. We are not among the highest in the ASEAN. The highest so far since the 2010s is Vietnam, and that is why it's almost overtaking us. Number 2 is Malaysia. Next is Thailand, Indonesia, and China. The Philippines is nowhere to be seen in this amounts of investments coming to the country. The FDI, despite the efforts of Congress to address the inimical economic situation of our country, the Philippines' FDI regulatory restrictiveness hampers the flow of much-needed foreign investments. We now have the graph coming from the OECD, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. 2020, it shows that the Philippines, Mr. Speaker, is the most restrictive in terms of foreign equity capital because they are enshrined in the Constitution. Look at the graph. The orange, the highest there is the Philippines, and then followed by Indonesia and the other countries. We are the most restrictive country in Asia on this particular FDI's restrictiveness because of our Constitution. FDI standing among ASEAN countries show that since the 1980s till the 2010s, the Philippines remains to be behind its neighbors as shown in this graph. It is not among the top 5 countries that attracts foreign investors. Mr. Speaker, I cannot overemphasize the fact that despite the passage of structural reforms to liberalize the economy in the last administration on the amendments to 1, the Retail Trade Liberalization, 2, amendments to the Foreign Investment Act, and 3, the Public Service Act. The reality is that constitutional limitations, Mr. Speaker, countervenes the objectives of these laws. The statements and position papers coming from the business sector during the public consultation show that those amendments, according to them, are not, I repeat, are not sufficient. For instance, the Joint Chamber of Foreign Industries, or Foreign Chambers of the Philippines, which is a conglomeration of 7 chambers of commerce, laud the Congress for acting to liberalize the domestic economy in order to increase investment and job creation, more employment opportunities, but they contend that Congress has yet to amend the foreign equity restrictions in the Constitution. And we have here the recent structural reforms. Those are the 3 bills. However, for example, we should consider that in this particular case, the Constitution itself, which is the fundamental law, must conform to and be able, not the other way around, meaning unless and until the constitutional restrictions are removed, the apprehensions and hesitancy on the part of the investors will consequently remain. It is also well known, we have one of those liberalizing bills that we have in laws. But it's well known that a consumer group has filed a petition in the Supreme Court of the Republic of the Philippines questioning the constitutionality of the Public Service Act. The High Court also recently ruled that the joint marine seismic undertaking among the Philippines, Vietnam, and Vietnam and China is unconstitutional as it went against Section 2, Article 12. In other words, the Supreme Court said, even pre-exploration by the Chinese in our joint marine exploration undertaking, that is considered exploration, and it is, the Constitution requires 60-40 in the exploration, exploitation, and development of natural resources, Article 12, Section 2. Another illustration is the 8-year-old case of Piatco. What happened to Piatco? Here it showed what constitutional restrictions have done to business in our country. It resulted in adverse selection problems, according to the National Scientist on Economics, Dr. Raul Fabella, and there were questions on why they were the ones, they effectively had 64% with their dummies, and the Supreme Court found that. Mr. Speaker, in contrast to this malady, a solution was posed by Chairman Joey Salceda in his study submitted to the committee during the last Congress. In its dynamic stochastic general equilibrium, DSGE, opening up the economy, as you can see there, opening the economy will result to 500,000 jobs in 2023. 500,000 jobs, 500,000 employment opportunities to our Filipinos if we are able to have a very liberal opening of our economy. If there is such a solution to unemployment and lack of jobs, why can't it be given the proper implementation? To cap this evidence-based recommendation from the experts, the World Bank, here we go, that's the World Bank. The World Bank top 10 policy prescriptions in the world. What is that? It says there, it includes restrictions, reduced restrictions on foreign investors. That is the recommendation of World Bank. So this is what is in the report under top policy prescription, reduce restrictions on foreign investors. The movement towards constitutional change has always been relevant. However, for the genuine constitutional reforms to have taken a backseat because of mistrust and unfounded perceptions that a constitutional reform will only benefit those who are in power. Filipinos, meanwhile, take severe punishment from corruption, high prices, inequitable distribution of income, and a lopsided playing field when it comes to foreign investments. It has been pointed out time and again that the 1987 Constitution contains numerous restrictions against the flow of foreign capital in specific areas of economic activities. Although the restrictions on foreign ownership are designed to prioritize Filipino citizens, it is noted, however, that the country sorely lacks the requisite capital to boost our economy and develop our natural resources. It is high time, Mr. Speaker, to liberalize such restrictions in order to encourage the free flow of capital in the country and pave the way to global competitiveness. As your Committee of Constitutional Amendments, we report to you the result. It's not very clear, but anyway, I can give the summary here. During the committee here, we report to you the result of deliberations on 7 public consultations conducted by the committee, 3 in-house hearings for the National Capital Region, and 4 nationwide regional constitutions in Luzon. It will show here the overwhelming vote and opinion to have constitutional changes now. And the selected mode is through a constitutional convention. During the committee deliberations, the resource persons answered the following issues raised before them. Number 1, are you in favor of amending the Constitution now? If in the affirmative, what is your preferred mode? Constituent Assembly or Constitutional Convention? And 3, what are your proposed amendments, if any? Mr. Speaker, constitutionalists and legal experts, former Chief Justice Renato Puno, former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Vicente Mendoza, former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Adolf Ascuna, are in favor of amending the Constitution. Also, the position paper and the representative of PhilConsa, the Philippine Constitutional Association, are in favor of amending the Constitution. For the business sector, we heard them, because they're the ones supposed to be protected by the restrictive provisions of the Constitution. They're the ones that are supposed to be protected. Mr. Speaker, almost all the business sector representatives, business sector, large business organizations like the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, represented by its President George Barcelon, the Management Association of the Philippines, represented by Attorney Perepe, and the Foundation of Economic Freedom, represented by Mr. Calixto Chiquiamco, are all in favor of lifting the restrictive provisions of the Constitution. On the other hand, from the academe, the economists, the political scientists, and think tank groups, Dr. Gerardo Sicat, Professor Emeritus of the UP School of Economics, Dr. Raul Fabella, also from UP School of Economics, international lawyer, Attorney Anthony Abad, Professor Edmund Tayaw, Dr. Clarita Carlos, and former Secretary of Finance Margarito Teves, Dr. Aniceto Orbeta, Jr., President of the Philippine Institute of Development Studies, represented by Dr. Navarro, and Attorney Homel Reville of the Constitutional Reform Movement, are all in favor for constitutional change, especially on economic amendments. Lastly, pertinent government agencies also expressed their support on the initiative of the committee to review the economic provisions, such as the Department of Foreign Affairs, through Undersecretary Carlos Soreta and Assistant Secretary Domingo Nolasco, the DILG, through Undersecretary Juan Victor Liamas, the Board of Investments Governor, the NEDA, through Undersecretary Crystal Tanuy, the Department of Agriculture, through Assistant Secretary Jane Bacayo, and the Department of Social Welfare and Development, through a former colleague, Undersecretary Nina Taduran. They are in favor of amending the Constitution, especially the economic provisions. We also take note, Mr. Speaker, that some prominent reactors are also against the amendments. Because in our public hearing, we allowed all in the spectrum, political spectrum, economic spectrum, all were invited to be able to present their opinion and position on these three questions. These are those who voted against and gave their views against amendments. They are the following: former colleague of Congress, Attorney Nery Colmenares; former colleague of Congress, Rafael Mariano, Chairman, Kilusang Magbubukid ng Pilipinas; former Congressman Antonio Tinio; former Congressman Fernando Capando Hicap, head of the Pambansang Lakas ng Kilusang Mamalakaya ng Pilipinas, Pamalakaya; constitutionalist, lawyer, former chairman of a Constitutional Commission, Attorney Christian Monsod; School of Economics Professor Emeritus Dr. Solita Collias Monsod; Professor of Law, Attorney Howard Calleja; UP Political Science Chair, Dr. Aris Arugay; and Ms. Jandel Roperos, President of the National Union of Students in the Philippines. In summary, Mr. Speaker, this committee was able to gather the pertinent data on the three issues raised from all the sectors, from both in-house and out-of-town public consultations, from the respondents who answered the survey questionnaires during the out-of-town consultations, and from those who submitted written position papers upon request of the committee. The result shows, Mr. Speaker, that out of 552 reactors and respondents, 424, or 77%, are in favor of amending the Constitution. 109, or 20%, are against it, and 19, or 3%, abstain. In the mode preferences, 226%, or 41%, are for Constitutional Convention, 91, or 16%, are for Constituent Assembly, and 77, or 14%, are for People's Initiative, the third mode of amending the Constitution. And 158 expressed their no preference at 29, no preference of which mode will be used. For those who answered in the affirmative, those who are saying that there should be a constitutional change now, 310, or 56% of them favor economic amendments, while only 24, or 4%, favor political amendments, and 38, or 7%, wants both, and 180, or 33%, have other proposed amendments outside the economic and the political provisions. It is also noteworthy to underscore that in the presentation and analysis of data in the liberalization of the economy, it will boil down to experts' opinion against experts. In the 18th Congress, one of our in-house economists, now the senior vice chairperson of the Committee on Appropriations, the Representative Estela Kimbo, wrote to then chairperson of the Committee on Constitutional Amendments on February 2, 2021, and has submitted a list of literatures. She wrote in part, and I quote Congresswoman Stella Kimbo, "We cannot turn a blind eye on the overwhelming scientific evidence in support of trade and investment liberalization. As a practicing economist, I found it essential to undertake a review of literature and examine the global evidence. Here's a summary of what I found," and this is included also in the annex of this speech. 122 out of 167 journal articles in peer-reviewed international journals, 122 out of 167, show that liberalization has a positive impact on the economy. The literature implies that a more liberal policy will increase our capital, increase our productivity, increase government revenue, increase employment, increase imports and exports, and increase GDP growth rate. So aside from literatures and expert opinions, the committee heard and listened to the sentiments from the grassroots, Mr. Speaker, my esteemed colleagues. This is the rationale behind the calling of the Constitutional Convention contained in RBH number 6. For the information of my colleagues, the same procedure was adopted in the 1971 Constitutional Convention when Congress first passed Resolution number 2 on March 16, 1967, which was subsequently implemented by the approval of Republic Act 6132 on August 24, 1970. In other words, like what we're doing now, we are now having deliberations on the resolution of both houses. Then a companion bill which now lays down the rules, qualifications of the elections and the budget will also come within this period that we have. The calling for a constitutional convention where delegates shall both be appointed and elected by the people simultaneously with the next barangay, sanggunian, and kabataan elections on October 30, 2023 is a mode that is intended to be more transparent, more democratic, and less divisive. The convention is mandated through a process of public hearings and deliberations to submit the proposed charter change for the people's ratification, which will not be held earlier than 60 days nor later than 90 days upon approval of the amendments or revisions, and the same shall be valid only when ratified by a majority of the votes cast. As to the procedure of the calling of a constitutional convention, Article 17, Section 3 of the Constitution and Rule 21, Section 146 of the House Rules says, the Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of all its members, can call a constitutional convention, or by a majority vote of all its members, submit to the electorate the question of calling such a convention. Further, Section 21, Rule 21, Section 145 of the House Rules likewise provides, proposals to amend or revise the Constitution shall be by resolution which may be filed by any time by any member. The adoption of resolutions proposing amendments to or revision of the Constitution shall follow the procedure for enactment of bills. First, we have first reading of all of these measures. Now we are on second reading. It goes to third reading. Nevertheless, such resolutions should be implemented through the passage of a bill. There has to be a companion bill containing the corresponding appropriation and other details relating to the election of delegates, the specific apportionment per district, and the holding of the Constitutional Convention itself, among others. That is why we have filed two measures. One, for the calling of the Constitutional Convention, which is now this RBH, and one as an implementing measure, which is a House bill. As a rule, appropriations shall be made through the enactment of a law. Thus, the implementing measure should be contained in a bill because only a bill can become a law as enunciated in the case of NARS versus Executive Secretary, GR number 215746, October 2019. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, the 1987 Constitution was ratified by the people through a plebiscite on February 2, 1987. It has been 37 years since its adoption, and several developments in our society and the global arena had happened. The passage of time and the present social and economic realities render its certain parts less responsive to our people's needs. It is important, Mr. Speaker, that constitutional reforms be completed through a transparent process that ensures the participation by the nation at large, and keeping with the sovereign mandate of the people, the new Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines should be truly reflective of the ideals and aspirations of the Filipino nation and not just a select few. In view of the foregoing, Mr. Speaker, let us pass RBH number 6 for a hybrid constitutional convention. Let the voices of the people be heard and our mandate fulfilled. We have gone through this as an institution for the last 3 decades. We can do this again now. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my esteemed colleagues. God bless the Philippines.
Thank you, the gentleman of the 2nd District of Cagayan de Oro, Chairman Rufus Rodriguez. Thank you very much. Majority Leader?
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Representative Gabriel Bordado for his interpellation.
Do you want first to open the period of interpellation before we proceed, Majority Leader?
I opened a while ago, but anyway, I move that we open the period of interpellation, Mr.
There is
Speaker.
a motion to open the period of interpellation. Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is carried. Majority Leader?
I now move that we recognize Representative Gabriel Bordado for his interpellation, Mr. Speaker.
Congressman Gabriel Bordado, you're now recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have some clarificatory questions which I will address to my idol, former Deputy Speaker, and now the Chairman of the Committee on Constitutional Amendments, Representative Rufus Rodriguez. So, Mr. Speaker, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. himself mentioned that charter change is not among the priorities of his administration. According to the President, attracting more foreign investments can be achieved without introducing amendments to the Constitution. In his words, Mr. Speaker, and I quote, "There are so many other things that we need to do first, that we can still do, that we can still achieve," unquote. If that is the case, Mr. Speaker, then what do we hope to truly achieve with the creation of a constitutional convention? Is it only for the purpose of rewriting economic provisions? If so, have we truly exhausted all possible ways to improve the country's economic performance? Mr. Speaker.
Thank you for that question, my dear distinguished colleague, Congressman Gabi Bordado. Indeed, the President has come out with a statement that first, it's not a priority for amending the Constitution because we can do it by legislation. We respect the executive, Mr. Speaker, but I'm sure the President will also respect the House of Representatives and Congress. Our principle underlying our Constitution is the fact that we have three branches of government. And we have the executive, headed by the President, and we have the legislative, which is the House and the Senate, and the judiciary. And we respect his opinion. However, we believe our committee, upon study, upon consultation, hearing the pulse of the people, not only here in the halls of Congress, in the committee rooms that we have, but in our sorties and our public consultations in the provinces. Mr. Speaker, the President said that we can do this by legislation. But Mr. Speaker, right now, our Public Service Act, which relaxes the Constitution, the case is now pending in the Supreme Court by a consumer group challenging the constitutionality of the listing as public utilities, telecommunication, transportation. So therefore, that particular issue will be hanging in the Constitution. And how can businessmen, knowing that a case has been filed in the Supreme Court, come here and invest even with the Public Service Act as amended if there is this question in the Supreme Court? And the biggest hurdle, Mr. Speaker, is that the Supreme Court already ruled in the Joint Marine Exploration Agreement. The Supreme Court categorically stated that the 60-40 is in the Constitution for the exploration, development, and of the natural resources. And exploration, according to the Supreme Court, includes pre-exploration. The digging is not yet exploration. It is pre, but according to the Supreme Court, it is already exploration. And that is why the Supreme Court annulled the agreement between the Philippines, China, and Vietnam. China could not on its own dig in our West Philippine Sea because 60-40, it should be a Filipino company with 60% that should do it. These are obstacles to what we have. And that is why we believe that the only way to assure the investors to come is through a constitutional change, through the lifting of these economic prohibitive constitutional provisions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Now, Mr. Speaker, if we are going to come up with a constitutional convention, what are the safeguards to ensure that the rights and interests of the Filipino people and not of a select few would be protected?
Thank you, Congressman Bordado. Well, in fact, our resolution now, after hearing Chief Justice Renato Puno during the February 20 public consultation, suggested for the hybrid. At first, we were thinking that because our districts will all be represented, and these are representatives of the people, 253 districts will elect in their districts the delegate to the Constitutional Convention. But we see the wisdom also of the former Chief Justice. Because we have now, if you will notice in our resolution, we now have appointment. Now, what is this appointment? This will all be laid down in the bill that is going to be discussed in the coming week to be able to accompany this particular measure. But because it was asked, I would like to give you some ideas that the committee had. And first, so aside from electing, Mr. Speaker, 253 district delegates to the convention, there will be appointed members of the commission, composing of legal experts, composing of representatives from the academe, representatives from the legal sector, representatives, delegates from the farmers and fisher folks, representatives from the seniors and with persons with disabilities, representatives of the workers' groups, representatives of women, and representatives of the youth. We believe that this will be, we will have a hybrid convention that will also get the brightest in each sector and the most which has the heart to work for their own sectors, Mr. Speaker. So those are the safeguards. And we will be making sure, as what Chief Justice Puno has said, there are bounds, well, it is a constituent power, we can place in our bill the bounds of two important limitations to the powers of the Constituent Assembly. Number one, that they should be in congruence with national security. And number two, they are always for the general welfare of the Filipino people.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. According to the National Economic and Development Authority, election in connection with the Constitutional Convention could cost the government as high as 28 billion pesos, a cost that could be pulled down to 231 million pesos if it could be conducted simultaneously with the barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections. Now, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, would the government have enough budget to hold such electoral exercises without sacrificing the priorities we should be focusing on?
Mr. Speaker, the committee called COMELEC Chairman Garcia. We asked him, how much will we spend if the election will be conducted together with the barangay elections of October 30. It's only a matter of putting one more line for the delegates. Elections for barangays are nonpartisan. Parties cannot participate. Local officials can support candidates, but not the party. Supreme Court decision. Elections for delegates will also be nonpartisan, so there will be no conflict of having elections for delegates who are nonpartisan, and then also the election for the barangays. The only amount, the amount that was given to us by the chairman is only not 10 billion for an election, no, 1.5 billion. And they can already implement the additional line in this particular election for delegates, which will be at the same time with the barangay election. Only 1.5. And we, based on our computation, for the expenses for our delegates and their constitution proper, it will be about 5 billion. And for the plebiscite, because it's a very small piece of paper, yes or no to the Constitution, we believe that a 3 billion budget, based on the committee's understanding, will be okay. So therefore, 1.5 plus 5 is 6.5 plus 3, only 8.5. An amount, Mr. Chairman, is minuscule compared to our 5.3 trillion budget, and the importance and the transcendental importance of having a constitutional convention so that our people will have a new constitution attuned to globalization and representation, and at the same time provide job opportunities to our people. So this will be discussed. Congressman Bordado, please come to the committee hearing on the bill because the budget will be tackled there, and we will be able to get expert opinion on the budget.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Mr. Speaker, with the continued price increases of different commodities, the all-time high inflation, and the lingering effects of the pandemic to our economy, is a constitutional convention a timely and wise use of our already limited and depleted resources?
Mr. Speaker, it is time. Mr. Speaker, there are always high prices. We are still reeling from the pandemic. But the way to go is to have a constitutional convention, lift these restrictions, get more investments, and the people will be employed and they will have purchasing power. Even if the prices are higher than what it used to be, although they say that this will go down this year, the inflation rate. If people have income, Mr. Speaker, because there will be 500,000 jobs that will be created for 2023 alone, we can safely say that it is a wise expenditure of our country of only 11 billion. In other words, it cannot be business as usual. Business as usual, there are always issues like this. But if we do not change the Constitution, it will remain as is. And we will retain a very high underemployment and unemployment rates, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, you mentioned several laws aimed at liberalizing foreign investment for certain industries.
Yes.
Now, instead of proposing amendments to the Constitution, have we thoroughly examined these laws or these acts, or introduced amendments that would result to more investments?
Yes, we have, Mr. Speaker. In fact, as I've stated, no matter what we do right now, it is now pending in the Supreme Court, this case filed for the unconstitutionality of the Public Service Act amendment. Because we passed the bill, we passed the law, that says that telecommunications, transportation are now excluded. The problem is that public utility has always been known to include communications, water, transportation, electricity. So it's pending there. So what good is that bill where there is a pending Supreme Court decision that may come out? It can be in favor, so no problem. It can be adverse. So what will happen? Wait and see by a businessman. But the worst thing that has really, just in implementation of the Constitution because of the 60-40 is the decision of the Joint Marine Exploration Survey, which clearly the Supreme Court said China cannot do even a pre-exploration. That's the defense of the OSG. This is not exploration yet. So the Article 12 does not come in because it is a pre-exploration. The Constitution says exploration, exploitation, and development. The Supreme Court was very clear. This pre-exploration is already exploration. And so never can there be a foreign investor that will come here, which will be 100%. They should only be 40%. So that's my answer, Mr. Speaker, to the good question of Congressman Bardado.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you so much, my dear friend, my seatmate in the last Congress, Congressman Bordado. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congressman Bordado. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended.
Hello. Arlene and Francis. Put on the record all the questions, yes?
Ako nga lahat yan, alam mo bang nagre-recruit ako?
We can, that's why I said that I can give an answer to midnight. Okay.
Sessions resume.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Representative Arlene Brosas for her interpellation.
Congresswoman Arlene Brosas is now recognized for your interpellation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, will the good sponsor yield to some few questions, Mr. Speaker?
With deep pleasure and honor, Mr. Speaker, for the Honorable Arlene Brosas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the resolution of both houses, number 6, which was approved at the Committee on Constitutional Amendment, seeks a constitutional convention to amend or revise the 1987 Constitution. But with apparently no compelling reason, no? Tila sa pagmamadali na mailusot ng komite ang pakanang Constitutional Convention o CONCON, minadali rin ang pagsusulat dito sa resolution na ito. I am training the spotlight on the text of the resolution, Mr. Speaker, because it should have laid down the merits of entertaining charter change or CHACHA. At this point, when Congress should have been deliberating on far more urgent measures such as inflation, reduction proposals, significant wage and salary increases, and subsidies for farmers. So, Mr. Speaker, yan po yung tanong natin. Meron tayong mga urgent na problema ngayon. And why the need Ano ang compelling reason kung bakit ito yung inuuna natin i-discuss? When you've actually presented po kanina, pinakita naman yung economic situation natin. Kung ni isa man lang doon, hindi natin matugunan, Mr. Speaker, then why are we talking about this, Mr. Speaker, sponsor?
Mr. Chairman, we are having this, and we have heard our sectors. We have the academe, we have the business sector, we have the farmers group. And precisely when you get into what is the sense of our people and the sectors, we believe that there is a need now to amend the Constitution. The issues of rising prices, inflation will be there, our debt. But at the same time, we are saying that while we face these issues, Congress can continue legislating, but at the same time, a constitutional convention will now determine what is best for our country, especially on economic provisions.
Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, kaya ako po sinabi kanina na to train the spotlight, particularly on the resolution itself. Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, saang provision po doon sa RBH number 6 nakasaad ang batayan para magpatawag ng CONCON at amyendahan o irebisa ang konstitusyon?
Well, we have here, of course, our resolution of both houses. The title itself calls for a constitutional convention. And then here in the resolution clause, so it's very clear here that it calls vote of 2/3, voting separately, Senate and the House, to call for a constitutional convention. Yes. It's in our resolution of both houses, number 6, in substitution of House Joint Resolution number 12 and PET 001.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Binabanggit lang, Mr. Speaker, na mayroon umanong mga pag-aaral, extensive studies. Yan po yung nakalagay dyan. Show that particular economic provisions of the 1987 Constitution need to be revisited and recrafted so that the Philippines may become globally competitive and attuned with the changing times. Sinasabi rin na such constitutional reform has been identified by reputable business and economic groups as one of the key policy instruments that needs to be implemented and is now long overdue. Pero ang tanong, Mr. Speaker, compelling reasons na ba ito? Sapat ba talaga itong batayan para magpatawag ng CONCON, Constitutional Convention, na gagastosan ng buwis ng taong bayan? This representation sees no urgency at all in how the rationale was laid down, Mr. Speaker. Kasi kung hindi, kung ito lang, extensive studies, that is so generic, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor.
Well, not only do we have extensive studies, but we have public consultations. A total of 552 reactors and respondents all over the Philippines. And clearly, 77% are in favor of amendment now. And all the business sector who are supposed to be protected by these limitations are saying they are in favor of this amendment now. And so it's compelling because if we want to have our economic growth, we are making sure that we will not be behind other countries in getting foreign investments so that we can give more employment opportunities. So all of these data are also in my sponsorship speech. A resolution only lays in the whereas clauses general statements.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, granting that the studies being cited, yan po, kahit yung presentation ninyo, recommend full-scale economic liberalization to become globally competitive and attuned with the changing times, what would global competitiveness really do to address soaring prices, backward agricultural production, and lack of national industries? Kasi po sa karanasan natin sa ilalim ng ilang dekada ng neoliberal na globalisasyon na karaniwang nakatago sa terminong global competitiveness, lalong sumadsad ang kabuhayan ng mga Pilipino at ang ekonomiya ng bansa. Now, is the sponsor aware that the share of agriculture to the country's GDP has consistently shrunk over the years due to decades of agricultural liberalization? In fact, 'di ba, pumasok po tayo sa GATT-WTO, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Papasok po tayo kasi niratifikahan ngayon yung RCEP, 'di ba? Regional Comprehensive Economic. Anyway, lahat po yan na ang nagresulta ay lalong liberalisasyon sa agrikultura at ang malaking naapektuhan ay ang ating mga magsasaka na ngayon hirap na hirap po sa kalagayan nila. Kahit pa sinasabi na may mga safeguards, may mga protection on agricultural products, hindi po ganun yung nangyari. No? Ngayon, parang sinasabi nyo, may mga ganito, may mga full-scale economic studies on liberalization or pagiging globally competitive, hindi po talaga ganun sa actually. In fact, yung mga malalaking bansa na may mga malalaking industriya, pag binagsak nila dito sa atin, yung kanilang competitive na mga produkto. Halimbawa, tayo ang kaya nating ipang-compete tuna, pero sila ang kaya nilang ipang-compete automotive na mga sasakyan. Wala tayong ganon, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, kaya hindi siya talaga papantay, no? Even sa trade balances, hindi po yun balanse, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor. So, it just shrunk over the years, no? Yun po yung sinabi natin, consistently, dahil sa agricultural liberalization.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleague, we look at our ASEAN neighbors. True that we have issues of rising prices, there are some problems in agriculture. But precisely, Mr. Chairman, if you look at Vietnam, Mr. Chairman, where it is liberalized, you look at Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Mr. Chairman, there is therefore this openness to business and to investments that had made sure that there's development. Vietnam was first an agricultural country, but then because of foreign investments, they already have manufacturing. They manufacture, like Thailand, they manufacture their agricultural products. Now, how can our agriculture also be able to stand up and improve if there's no manufacturing that would come in? We have not opened our country for development of our natural resources. So what I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, is that precisely these are problems that we have, but I believe that opening up our country, providing job opportunities to our people, we will give them purchasing power to be able to develop, to buy products from our agriculture and products from the other sectors.
Mr. Speaker, inopen nyo na po yung FDIs,
Yes.
Foreign direct investments. Lumalabas sa datos, Mr. Speaker, na papalaki ang net foreign investment inflows sa bansa. Net inflows of foreign direct investments or FDI amounting to $10.5 billion in 2021 represent a 54.2% year-on-year growth from 2020. Ngayon, this is a new record level high for the country as it surpassed yung 10.3 billion net inflows in 2017. Meanwhile, agriculture as share of the GDP declined to just 10% in 2021, from 14.1% to 2011, while the share of industry to GDP dropped to 28.89% in 2021 from 31.34% in 2011. Now, is this the kind of economic trajectory that we are espousing to be a full-blown service-oriented economy with no industries and agricultural sector in the name of global competitiveness? Other ASEAN countries had a different liberalization story. Yan po yung sinasabi natin, di ba? Kasi iba-iba naman yung karanasan ng bawat ibang bansa. Depende sa kalagayan nila. So, they started with strong national industries like yung Vietnam, di ba? before they liberalize their economies. Kaya kinaya nilang makipagsabayan sa ibang mga foreign direct investments. Pero sa kalagayan natin, Mr. Speaker, sa ganitong kalagayan natin na sumasadsad tayo at wala tayong malakas na industriya, paano yan? Magiging service-oriented economy na lang tayo niyan, Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor.
Not at all, Mr. Speaker. We will not only be a service-oriented economy. Precisely, Vietnam was not also very much developed when they started opening up their country. They were a communist regime. But then because of foreign investments,
But
they are
then,
going
Mr.
there
Speaker,
now.
may buong national industries ang Vietnam.
Well, at
Malakas
the
ang-
time when they started, it was certainly foreign investments. We have to agree with that that is based on the literature, that foreign investments certainly made Vietnam go fast in development. What I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is that precisely without lifting our provisions of the Constitution, number one, on public utilities, number two, on development of natural resources, three, education, advertising, and therefore, in the case of education, we will be behind, Mr. Speaker, and that is why it's the business, in fact, businessmen of our country says that, yes, we don't want to be protected anymore because they know that there's purchasing power of our people. They can buy their products. And when they are mass-produced, prices will go down. If there will be a large purchasing power of our people, it will become economies of scale. And so therefore, I believe, Mr. Speaker, that the time is now and the time to try. We have been trying. Based on the OECD and the World Bank report, certainly we are very small in terms of the 10 billion compared to other countries that you cited is, if you put a graph, is much smaller than what Vietnam and Malaysia and Singapore has. So that is the point. The point is that let's try. It had been like that since 1935, Mr. Speaker. Since 1935, that protectionist article has been there, 60-40, public utilities, the natural resources. So that is why, Mr. Chairman, since 1935, wala talaga. We still believe that there can be more that can develop our economy if we don't have a restrictive, very, very restrictive provisions in our Constitution, my distinguished colleague.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, yun nga yung gusto nating i-address. Before na-liberalize yung economy, for example, ng Vietnam, state-owned. Tama po ba? State-owned yung mga enterprises at that time.
Yeah, but they were not so developed until the FDIs came. There were state companies. We are even better because we have private initiative and they're big now, our businessmen. But it is really for the investment. If you will look at the graph, Vietnam has been receiving a lot of foreign investments, higher, very much higher than the Philippines. Of course, Thailand is way there, way up, and Singapore and Malaysia. So let us try to be on this league. Let us try not to be left behind. And that is why this is what we saw, our committee has seen after hearing, especially the businessmen, that ito ang kailangan natin. Job creation, employment opportunities, so that we can have more employment of our people.
Mr. Speaker, correct me if I'm wrong. Ito po ay sinabi ng ADB. Even post-FDI and post-Doi Moi policy, state-owned enterprises, SOE sector in Vietnam, is one of pillars in Vietnamese economy. It accounts for 28% of GDP, contributes nearly 30% of the state budget. So ang general statistics ng 2018 nila, 17% bank credit comprises, and at the same time, this sector is responsible for 60% of non-performing loans in the economy. So ibig sabihin, Mr. Speaker, malakas talaga, no? Or merong laban, may ilalaban ang Vietnam. sa ganyang ano. Pero sa Pilipinas, kung ikukumpara po natin, ano ang ilalaban natin? Ano ang state industries na meron tayo? Ano ang malakas sa atin, Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor, para magpapasok tayo ng FDIs na matiyak natin na yung mga FDIs na pumapasok sa ating bansa will really boost our economy, Mr. Speaker.
Well, the
ginoong
distinguished
sponsor.
colleague mentioned Asian Development Bank, but we will mention also OECD in terms of how we are restrictive. The purpose of that is to show in the report that these countries which are restrictive have limited foreign investments. The World Bank, these are world institutions that have stated that opening up the economy certainly will be for the best interest of the people of that country.
Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor, mukhang doon nga tayo merong
That's okay.
merong pagkakaiba
Okay.
ng posisyon dahil
Yeah.
tingin po ng kinatawang ito, lalamunin tayo ng buhay dito sa Pilipinas, no? Ng mga ipapasok nating hindi naman tayo makakapag-compete, no? Lalong-lalo na sa usapin ng agricultural industries. Ngayon, na napakahirap ng kalagayan ng mga magsasaka at inaangal talaga nila, even ang fertilizer nila. Ngayon, napaka-backward sa mga lugar kung nasaan ang mga magsasaka natin dahil araro pa rin ang ginagamit nila at yung mga mangingisda natin ay maliliit na bangka pa rin ang gamit nila. At yan pa rin ang karamihan na meron tayo, Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor, mahirap mag-compete at mahirap magpapasok ng mga foreign direct investments na ang tatamaan or kahit nga po importasyon ng mga agricultural products, mahirap pong ibagsak yon dito sa ating bansa nang wala ngang proteksyon or pabababain palalo yung mga taripa at hindi makikinabang yung mga lokal na nagpo-produce sa ating bansa. That is our worry, Mr. Speaker, ginoong
Yes,
sponsor.
we note that and we would, that's on the record. So that is the opinion and that is also based on what you research. Is your stance. So we thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor. Kaugnay naman po sa constitutional ba ang nature, no, ng mga kasalukuyang problema ng mamamayan sa ngayon? Halimbawa, ang tuloy-tuloy na pagtataas ng presyo, ang pagsandig natin sa importasyon ng sibuyas, asukal at iba pang produktong agrikultural, yung mababang pasahod sa mga manggagawa, nagbumula ba ito sa 1987 Constitution, Mr. Speaker?
It would have been
Sponsor?
really been better if we have more foreign investments and more employment so that our people have the purchasing power. Now, situations like for example, high prices, it always happens. And ours is to rein in that particular high inflation. And how do we do that? By being able, by economies of scale, being able for our country to have more investments and our people to be able to buy more. And then it will lower down the cost if there is a demand. And there is also the purchasing power of our people through job creation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor. Sa sagot niyo po, no, kasi ang tanong ko po, yung 1987 Constitution ba ang may problema kung bakit hindi natin magawa ng paraan na magtaas ng sahod ngayon? Doon ba ang sagka, Mr. Speaker?
We believe so, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, our problems with salaries and so forth is also partly because our Constitution is very restrictive. In fact, it is of common knowledge that foreign investors here and their companies pay higher wages and higher salaries. And we want that to be given to the benefit of our workers. If they'll be employed in our foreign investors' companies, then they will have a higher, and our local businessmen will also be able to increase as there will be increases in salaries on those employed by the foreign investors.
Pero Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor, hindi ba tayo ay regionalized? Diba? Ang ating pagtataas ng sahod?
Yes.
So, nasa Constitution ba yon?
It's not. It's not in the Constitution. It is the policy of the Department of Labor that it will be a regional wage hike. And in fact, we in Congress had practically acquiesced with that because there is no law that increased salary in a national scale. And Department of Labor is precisely having this regional, these are the different regional contingencies and regional situations different from each other. But the point is, if we open our investments to foreign investors, then they will go, for example, to different parts of our country. And from there, they will set the tone of the salaries of those in those areas. And then this will already make some influence on other corporations. So that is why opening it up, they will go to different regional centers and put up their companies there. And certainly, it will be able to have the economy going and growing. Yes.
Ako lang, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, no? Hindi naman sagka yung 1987 Constitution sa pagtaas ng sahod, di ba? In fact, nasa RA 6727 ang problema o yung wage rationalization at wala ito sa konstitusyon. Pwede, tama po ba, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, at any point in time, itaas ang sahod ng mga manggagawa. Pero hindi po yun ginagawa.
Yes, definitely. Congress can be able to legislate a national wage. But once again, by Congress not legislating a national wage, we see the peculiarities and the situations in different regions. What I'm saying is that if we open our country to more investments, they'll go to different regions and it will have an effect on the salaries because then normally the foreign investors, they give higher wages as proven by our data, and it can be able to have an influence on the regional boards to increase our salaries.
Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, with the current situation, pwede naman pong pag-usapan, depende sa lokal na produksyon, na kine-create natin yung kakayanan na pataasin din yung sahod ng mga manggagawa natin. Tama, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor. So, totoo naman yun, sinasabi ninyo na maaaring magbukas ng trabaho ang bansa, no? More FDI will set the stage, no? Ng mas maraming trabaho, yun po ang sinasabi ninyo. Hindi po ba ito rin sa isang banda ay mag-set ng stage for wars, race for the bottom for workers?
No.
Halimbawa, Mr. Speaker, foreign capital will go where wages are lowest. Alam natin yan.
Well, that's one. But precisely, many foreign companies will think of productivity by having higher wages for their people. That is always the incentive of productivity, good management, and high wages. That's why the problem is, we are at this point na medyo mahina ang our salaries are low, is because of the restrictive foreign, we go back again to the restrictive foreign policy. Limited ang investments coming in. And so therefore, there is no employment, there is no income, and wages are low. So this is the premise of why we have to have a constitutional convention, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor, I think no foreign investor will prioritize higher wages before their interest for profit. Now, Mr. Speaker, sinasabi sa konstitusyon, may karapatan dapat ang mga manggagawa sa living wage o nakabubuhay na sahod. Pero ang realidad sa ngayon, barya-barya ang minimum na sahod na pinapanatiling barat ng regional wage boards. Ang punto, Mr. Speaker, wasto ang nakasaad sa konstitusyon pero hindi ito binibigyang katuparan ng mga umiiral na patakaran at administrasyon. Umento po sa sahod ang kailangan, pero bakit kailangan idadaan natin sa CONCON ang usapan para magpapasok ng mga foreign capital and foreign direct investments dito sa bansa, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, precisely, Mr. Speaker, we are saying that there is a lack of employment opportunities, low wages, and that is because of our regime of restrictiveness, as stated by the World Bank and stated by the OECD. And we're saying, and the graph will show, that if you compare the Philippines' foreign direct investments coming into the Philippines, it's much smaller than the others. So that's why we're saying that what we have may improve. It is the future, Mr. Chairman. We are trying to see, we cannot anymore have business as usual. We have already something that will change, and the CONCON will do that when we lift restrictive provisions. So that is the point of this resolution.
Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, di ba pero nga yung kaya lumalabas yung foreign capital sa bansa kasi naghahanap ng mas murang pasahod. Eh kung mura dito sa Pilipinas, hindi rin naman, kung mas mahal dito sa Pilipinas, lalabas din sila ng ibang bansa para maghanap ng bansa na mas mura ang pasahod. Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor.
You know, salaries are not the only factors in investment, and we all know that. Mr. Chairman, I talked to the Canadian ambassador, and he says, you know, there are so many manufacturing and industries that if we have a change in constitution, this comes from him already, Ambassador Hartman, because I visited him. And he said, once there is a show that our constitution has been amended and there is no more that 60-40, they can go on development, they can go utilities, then they will come here. And when they come here, precisely there will be job opportunities and then they will have wages. What is important is the regime that we have in terms of allowing foreign investments. It is already the biggest stumbling block if the Constitution itself will not allow a more than 40% in these fields that I've mentioned earlier.
Anyway, Mr. Speaker, kaugnay po dyan, naniniwala po tayo na dapat asikasuhin muna ng ating bansa yung pagtataas ng sahod before we allow itong mga pagbabago sa ating konstitusyon na kayang-kaya namang gawin ng ating pamahalaan sa ngayon. Saka yung usapin ng importasyon sa sibuyas, asukal at iba pa, mas magkakaroon ng kumpiyansa ang ating bansa kung itong mga ito ay ating nagagawa ng paraan. And even yung usapin po ng tuloy-tuloy na pagtaas ng presyo, nakakabahala po yun eh. Kasi, di ba, umabot po tayo ng 8.7% na inflation, which really is, ibig sabihin, kapag pumunta ka na sa palengke, magkano na lang talaga yung iyong mabibili sa halaga ng nakuha mo mula sa iyong sahod. Ganon, Mr. Speaker. I would like to go to another point na, Mr. Speaker. Kasi parang, I believe itong foreign direct investments ay masyado na nating na-discuss.
Thank you.
Now, on the premise of CONCON, Mr. Speaker, given that the RBH number 6 mainly rests on scant economic justifications, can the good sponsor affirm that the discussions in the CONCON would be limited to economic provisions of the Constitution? Would the sponsor agree that it would be unwarranted to entertain political provisions in the CONCON, given the limited stipulations in this resolution of both houses?
First of all, it's not scant that we have made the studies. We do not have very scant figures and data. We have certainly gone into data from the OECD, data from the World Bank, and data of the literature that we have. So clearly, and fully discussed. We have the business sector there, the academe, and the government agencies. So very clear that based on our public consultations, the best positions have come out. But it's just that the overwhelming majority of our reactors and respondents believe that there should be a constitutional convention. Now, to the issue of whether they might be political, clearly, the committee would really want that it will only be economic provision because we believe that that is what is needed now. In fact, in our data, in our respondents, it's very clear that majority, a plurality, is in favor of having a constitutional convention only for economic purposes. And that is why it's here. The result will show. It says here. For those who answered that there is a need to amend, 310 or 56% of them favor economic amendments, while only 56% favor economic amendments. 24 or 4% favor political amendments, and 7% wants both. So clearly, the thrust is to have economic amendments. And that is why, that is what we envision. However, as we all know, if we have a constitutional convention, it's now quite open. It's open really to some political amendments, and other reactors have said that there can be discussions of the political amendments. But there will be, in a proper time, we will be able to have in our resolution and bill a statement that it will focus on economic amendments only.
Economic amendments only, pero Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor, may possibility na maging usapin din yung political amendments, Mr. Speaker?
There is a big possibility because that's constituent power. But what has been articulated in our hearings and in our public consultation is that what is needed now is to give more employment to our people. And that is what makes the difference. If you have people employed, then they have income. They have income, they make industries live because they can buy their products because they have income. So the entire economy revolves and improves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor. Totoo po yan eh. Talaga namang kailangan ng job generation ng mga tao ngayon. Kailangan talaga nila ng trabaho. Sikmura talaga ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor. Kanina po, let me rephrase, scant justifications, scant economic justifications ang binabanggit natin. Kasi sa point of view po namin yon, nakaposesyon, na there is not enough
take note of
justification.
that. Yes.
Kasi we can do that without tinkering on the 1987 Constitution. And I think, and I believe, no, na kung talagang seryoso yung gobyerno doon, dapat nagagawa ng paraan yun ngayon. Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor, syempre ang bottom line, ay hindi napapanahon para sa amin at walang kagyat na ugnayan ang pagtalakay sa pagbabago sa konstitusyon sa mga kagyat na problema ng kababaihan at mamamayan sa ngayon. Higit na walang kinalaman ang political amendments sa sikmura ng mamamayan sa ngayon, na dapat pagbantayan at hindi dapat na maging usapan sa CONCON. We believe that, no? Maliban kung ito ay patungkol sa pagwawakas sa dinastiya at pagpapalakas ng demokrasya sa ating bansa. Now, Mr. Speaker, quite noticeably, this RBH specifies that by the Senate and the House of Representatives with a vote of 2/3 of all its members voting separately to call a constitutional convention for the purpose of proposing amendments to or revision of the 1987 Constitution, nakalagay po doon, nabasa natin, with the election and appointment of delegates. Ito po yung sa hybrid.
Yes.
Yun yung to be held on October 30, 2023, simultaneous with the barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections. Mr. Speaker, ibig sabihin ba nito ay hybrid ang CONCON na isasagawa? Ang sinasabi po kasi dito, CONCON delegates will be elected and appointed. Ano yun, Mr. Speaker? Elected, magkakampanya din sila? Anong gagawin mo? Paano mangyayari yun?
Yes, although this will be the proper forum will be on the bill that we are going to discuss next week. But let me tell you that precisely we heard former Chief Justice Puno, we have 253 districts. So basically, we'll elect one delegate for each district. So 253. And somehow in our committee, we already have some discussions that we will have 20% of that coming from different sectors to be appointed, so that we have a mix of experts there and be able to be part of the discussions.
Mr. Speaker, i-forward ko na rin, Mr. Sponsor. Parang going forward, paano nakikita natin yung hybrid na ito na CONCON? Paano yung how will the members of the CONCON be appointed, for example? Aware tayo na hindi pa aprobado ang accompanying bill. Alam
Yes.
naman natin yon kasi 'di ba na pag-uusapan pa natin yon. Subalit mahalagang malinaw sa publiko kung paano ang pinaplano ng sponsors ng panukalang constitutional convention, 'di ba? Halimbawa, dito sa Pilipinas, mga artista nga po yung nananalo eh. Pag popular ka, mananalo ka sa eleksyon. Eh di anong gagawin ng mga hindi naman popular doon sa... Ano lang yun, niisip lang natin yun, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, paano yan? Mga artista yung... Kasi sila yung popular eh. So tatalunin talaga nila yung yung iba pa na maaaring gusto natin na maging miyembro ng Constitutional Convention or whatever. Parang ganyan, Mr. Speaker. Patanawin niyo po kami kung ano ang itsura.
There will be
Constitutional
sectors.
Convention
We have
hybrid.
discussed this, but subject, of course, to the bill that will be discussed next week. We talk about sectors. Aside from the 253, we will talk about, for example, a sector of the academe, sector of the economist, business sector, labor organizations, farmers organizations, women, our youth. So we will have also disappointments so that we'll have sectoral representation also in the Congress. Then, for example, we have, of course, justices of the Supreme Court, retired. They can give a lot of good advice. And so therefore, that will be discussed in our bill. But offhand, we have agreed, we have followed the advice of the former Chief Justice that hindi lang mga district delegates, but there will be from sectors we believe that can bring out the sentiments of the sectors.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, yung sectoral representation, wala naman tayong tanong doon. Gusto natin talagang well-represented yung lahat. But with the kind of elections na meron tayo, na ang nananalo ay yung may pera, yung merong dinastiya, yung merong mas malakas ang kapangyarihan, yung popular, yung, di ba, yung Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, paano matitiyak na yun yung maboboto dun sa...
That is why in the appointments, that is where we will go to those really very qualified to stand in the Constitutional Convention. It's still evolving. That is why we will have the bill, and we'll discuss that on qualifications and mode of election. They will be by appointment. Probably the sector will recommend them, and then we will have the president appoint. So these are the things that can happen. So this is already lodged on the bill. Suffice to say that in a resolution, it only gives that particular call for a convention. And in that call, which is the resolution, it already includes a hybrid one because we already included elected and appointed. So that is for purposes of the resolution. There will be an accompanying bill that will clearly lay down the qualifications and how the sectoral will be elected. Yes.
So, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, yung mga appointed muna, i-appoint muna before magkaroon ng election. Ganun ba yon? Or
yes,
it's
before the election, they will be there. There has to be some election already, appointments already.
So, the appointments, out of those appointments, yun doon magkakaroon ng election?
There will be sectors will recommend first to the. This is just an advance. Probably this may not happen in the next week. But as far as I'm concerned, there can be recommendations from some sectors, from the academe, from the economy sector, from the lawyers group, from farmers group, and they will be recommended to the Speaker and the Senate President, and they are going to be able to recommend that to the President, having the appointing power. So, ganon. So, but I think the best way is to be able to discuss. What we're dealing now is the basic resolution according to the Constitution, Article 17, to call for a constitutional convention. And in fact, we made sure here that there's already the mention. We can only say here also that call for a constitutional convention, two-thirds vote. That's it. No, but in this resolution, which the accompanying bill will follow, there's already a statement of appointments, and that means that there will be not only those elected by 253 districts, but also by appointment, so that their sectors will be properly represented.
So hindi pa natin makita ng buong-buo, Mr. Speaker,
Hindi
Mr.
pa.
Speaker,
Resolution
dahil
lang calling, yeah.
usapan pa
It will be accompanying bill. The same with 1971. 71, they started with a resolution and then followed by a bill, which became law.
Okay. Now, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, if this resolution of both houses merely set the tone and lay down the basis for the convening of a constitutional convention, why then does this resolution visibly fall short of any tangible sense of urgency? Wala pong inilatag na konkreto at kagyat na mga dahilan para baguhin ang konstitusyon. Basta sinasabi lang natin dito na dapat mag-con-con. Ganon, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor?
No, precisely, it says here, extensive studies and then constitutional reform. So there is really a basis for this. And that is why we are putting this to you after deliberation for a vote, because this merely is the exercise of our power to be able to have a constitutional convention as the Constitution, Article 17, mandates if you want to amend the Constitution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, sa pagsagot sa mga tanong ko. Hindi pa rin po tayo kumbinsido dito at magpapatuloy po tayong magtanong, mag-alam kung ano ang mga kinakailangan natin malaman dito, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor. At naniniwala po tayo, there was no compelling stipulation under this subject resolution dahil ang nakalagay lang po, studies, di ba? Yun lang po yung nakalagay na compelling
And
reason.
consultations.
Oo. Yun ang consultations, nakalagay po ba?
Yes.
Yan. Anyway, hindi yun po no yung mga tanong natin. Now as a last manifestation, Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
Hindi maaring umindak, no? Piliting umindak na lang ang mamamayan natin sa chacha or charter change nang walang malinaw, kagyat at konkretong batayan. Lalo na hindi naman ito ang sasagot sa usapin ng mababang sahod. Mataas na presyo, malawak na kawalan ng trabaho, this RBH number 6 is bereft of any relevance to pressing issues hounding Filipinos at the moment. Nor does it hold any promise of reversing the decline of our industries and agricultural sectors. Yung FDIs po, we have yet to see yun no? On the contrary, lifting the constitutional limits to foreign ownership and further liberalizing the economy will aggravate the misery and suffering of ordinary Filipinos. Katulad po ng sinasabi natin kanina, yung mga magsasaka natin na maaapektuhan dito, yung mga manggagawa natin na magre-race to the bottom dahil nga ang kompetisyon ay matindi. Nung isang linggo, nagdagdag tayo ng dagdag na agreed locations sa ilalim ng EDCA. Kahapon, niretipika ng Senado ang RCEP sa ganansya ng China. At ngayon naman, nagtatalakay tayo sa plenaryo ng Chacha na nakatuon pa rin sa paghimok ng mas maraming dayuhang pamumuhunan. Ito ang tunay na pagsuko, no? Tingin natin, pagsuko ng soberanya ng ating bayan. Hindi yung isama na rin po natin yung issue ng hindi natin pagpapahintulot sa investigasyon ng ICC sa madugong gyera kontra droga at paglabag sa karapatan ng mga mamamayan. It would be also hard to believe that this Chacha Express has no blessing of the President at the rate of how things are moving. We beg to disagree that congressional independence is the reason. Kasi kung may congressional independence, hindi minadali yung Maharlika Investment Fund at marami pang priority measures ng Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. This unfortunately is an ultimate exercise of surrender of national sovereignty and independence. Yan po ang tingin natin sa ngayon. Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you also, our distinguished colleague.
Thank you, Congresswoman Arlene Brosas. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we suspend consideration of resolution of both houses number 6. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection on the motion? There is none. Motion is adopted. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration of and approval on third reading House said measures, House Bill 7004, 7007, 7008, 7010, and House Bill 5269, and request the Secretary General to read the said measures and call for the roll for nominal voting. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Chair is done. The Secretary General is now directed to read the title of the aforementioned bills.
House Bill 7004, an act declaring the last Friday of May of every year a special non-working holiday in the province of Catanduanes in celebration of the Abaca Festival. House Bill 7007, an act declaring July 8 of every year a special non-working holiday in the city of Isabela, province of Basilan, in celebration of the feast of Saint Elizabeth of Portugal, to be known as Fiesta Alegria de Isabela. House Bill 7008, an act declaring March 7 of every year a special non-working holiday in the province of Basilan in commemoration of its foundation anniversary, to be known as Araw ng Basilan, and in recognition of the Tenun Pakarajan as the official festival of the province of Basilan. House Bill 7010, an act declaring June 9 of every year a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Rosario, province of Batangas, in commemoration of its foundation anniversary. And House Bill 5269, an act declaring November 11 of every year as a special non-working holiday in the municipality of Taysan, province of Batangas, in celebration of its foundation anniversary. Roll call of members in consideration on third reading of House Bill number 7004, 7007, 7008, 7010, and 5269. Abalos, Abante, Abunda, Charon, Asidre, Acop, Adjong, Advincula, Agaraw, Alba, Albano, Almario, Almonte, Alonte, Alvarez, Jose, Alvarez, Mercedes, Alvarez, Pantaleon, Amante, Amatong, Angara, Aquino, Aquino, Magsaysay, Arbison, Arenas, Arrogancia, Asisto, Atayde, Aumentado, Balindong, Barbar, Barbers, Baronda, Barsaga, Bascug, Bautista, Lim, Benitez, Bernas, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondok, Bungalon, Bordado, Bosita, Briones, Brosas, Buhain, Burut, Bigtang, Bustos, Cabredo, Agas, Kahayin, Uy, Calderon, Calixto, Campos, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castro, France, Caso, Jane, Celeste, Chan, Chato, Chua, Chongalaw, Ko Angelica, Natasha, Ko Lizaldi, Ko Pilar, Ko Juan, Ko Jaime, Juan Ko Marco, Lado, Colyantes, Corvera, Cruz Ambrosio, Cruz Ricardo, Cuba, Corres, Madugok, Dalipe, Dalog, Dayang Hirang, Dasa, Jesus, Definition, Defensor, Del Mar de los Santos, Dimapor, Muhammad, Gali, Dimapor, City, Amina, Junicio Domingo, Duavid, Duhali, Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael Carlos, D. Ian Policleo, Iman, and Verga, Escudero, Espares, Espina, Estrella, Udela, Farinas, Fernandez, Ferrer Antonio, Ferrer Juliet Marie, Flores Fortes, Frasco, Fresnedi, Fuentebella, Galeos, Garcia Albert, Garcia Dante, Garcia Jose Arturo, Garcia Maria Angela, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Carjola Garin Gasataya, Gato, Go, Christopher, Go, Mark, Goles, Gomez, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Groseta, Guigo, Ginto, Gullas, Gutierrez, Sagidor, Nares, Guhataman, Hernandez, Herrera, Horibata, Javier, Ko Olga, Ko Ricardo, Ko Wilton, Kung Hun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Noel, Lagman, Lagun Daphne, Lagun Sani, Lara, Rasatin, Di, Ligarda, Libanan, Limkaychong, Loyola, Luis Tor Lumayag, Makapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Magsino, Malapitan, Mga Awang Manikis, Manuel Maranyon, Marcoleta, Marcos, Mariana Hernandez, Marino Marquez, Martinez, Mastura, Matibag, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado Revilla, Miguel Momo, Morden, Nava, Nisay, Noel, Nagraras Juan, Fidel Felipe, Nagraras Margarita, Narasco Uwaminal, Raso Olivares, Angchuan, Ordanes, Ortega, Wano Dizon, Padiernos, Paduano, Paglas, Palma, Panaligan, Pancho, Panotes, Pascual Peña, Pimentel, Plaza Plato, Primicia Sagabas, Pumarin, Puno, Kimbo, Rama, Rector, Rehencia, Revilla Brian, Revilla Juan Jolo, Reyes, Rillo, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez Eulogio, Rodriguez Rufus, Roman Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Sieda Marie, Romualdo Romulo Roque, Sakdaran, Sagarbaria, Sakluran, Sarceda, Sari Salimba, Gonzalo, Salvome, Santos, Saulog, Silverio, Sinson Richel, Sinson Ronald, Sinson Mihan, Solon Suwan, Swansing Horacio, Swansing Micaela Angela, Suarez, Talyado, Tamayo, Tambunting, Tan Joseph, Tan Keith Michael, Tan Reynolds Michael, Tan Samuel, Tan Stephen James, Tan Tambut, Tan Chay, Tan Watco, Tariela, Chodoro, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Chanco, Cheng Tolentino, Tulfo, Jocelyn, Tulfo, Rafael, Tupas, Tuto, Tit, Umali, Unabio, Unga, Valeriano, Valmeor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso Tuaso, Vergara, Visosa, Villa, Villafeto Luis Raymond, Villafeto Miguel Luis, Villanueva, Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Villago, Yang Suan, Yap Crisantel, Yap Christopherson, Yap Edvic, Yap Eric, Yu Divina Grace, Yu Jason Victoria, Yulo, Zamora Amparo Maria, Zamora Maria Carmen, Zamora Isabel Maria, Zubiri. Second call for consideration, third reading of House Bill numbers 7004, 7007, 7008, 7010, and 5269. Abante Abunda, Acharon, Avincula, Alvarez Pantaleon, Atayde Balindong, Baronda Billones, Busita, Chungalaw, Ko Angelica Natasha, Ko Pilar Cullantes, Jesus, Dimaporo, Muhammad Khalid, Duterte, Enverga Fariñas, Gomez Gonzales Sandro, Ricardo Malapitan, Marcoleta Martinez, Mendoza, Nograles Juan Fidel Felipe, Paglas Panotes, Rector Romero, Sagabria, Salceda, Saulog Silverio, Sinson Richel, Suwan, Tambunting, Tan Reynolds Michael, Tan Samir, Tan Stephen James, Tan Tambutan Chay, Teves Arnolfo, Versosa, Villafuerte Miguel Luis, Villanueva, Villarasa Suarez, Yap Edvic, Yap Eric.
With 251 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, the Chair declares House Bill, 257 members voting in the affirmative. So House Bill numbers 7004, 7007, 7008, 7010, and 5269 having been approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration of the following measures and approval of the following measures: House Bill 6913, House Bill 6934, House Bill 6935, and request the Secretary General to read the title of the bills and call the roll for nominal voting. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection on the part of the House? The Chair is none. The motion is approved. The Secretary General will read or directed to read the title of the bill and call the roll for nominal voting.
House Bill 6913, an act declaring the foreshore areas along the Albay West Coast in the 3rd District of the Province of Albay as tourist spots. House Bill 6934, an act declaring the Bien Unido Double Barrier Reef and its immediate underwater environs in the municipality of Bien Unido, Province of Bohol, a tourism destination. House Bill 6935, an act declaring the Malamawi Island in the city of Isabela, Province of Basilan, an ecotourism zone. Roll call of members for consideration on third reading of House Bills 6913, 6934, 6935. Abalos, Abante, Abunda, Acharon, Asidre, Acop, Adjong, Advincula, Agaraw, Alba, Albano, Almario, Almonte, Alonte, Alvarez Jose, Alvarez Mercedes, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante, Amatong, Ang, Angara, Aquino, Aquino Magsaysay, Arbison, Arenas, Arrogancia, Asistio, Atayde, Aumentado, Balindong, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Lim, Benitez, Bernos, Bellones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondok, Bongalon, Bordado, Bosita, Briones, Prosas, Buhain, Bulutpegtang, Bustos, Cabredo, Cagas, Kahayin, Uy, Calderon, Calisto, Campos, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castro France, Castro Jane, Celeste Chan, Chato, Chua, Chungalao, Co, Angelica Natasha, Co, Elizalde, Co, Pilar, Cuanco Jaime, Cuanco Mark, Collada, Colliantes, Corvera, Cruz, Ambrosio, Cruz, Ricardo, Cua, Quaresma, Dagoc, Dalipe, Dalog, de Anghirang Daza, de Jesus, de Venecia, Defensor del Mar, de Los Santos, de Maporo Mohamed Khalid, de Maporo City Amina, Junicio Domingo Duavit Duhali Duterte, D. Faustino Ino, D. Faustino Michael Carlos, D. Ian Paul, Ecleo Amano Enverga Escudero, Espares Espina, Estrella Yudela, Fariñas, Fernandez, Ferrer, Antonio, Ferrer, Juliet Marie, Flores, Fortes, Frasco, Fresnedi, Fantabella, Galeos, Garcia Albert, Garcia Dante, Garcia Jose Arturo, Garcia Maria Angela, Garcia Pablo John, Garcia Vincent, Garjola Garin, Gatsataya, Gato, Go, Ed Christopher, Go, Mark, Goles Gomez Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Gliseta Yuhico, Quinto Gulias, Gutierrez, Hagedorn, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera, Oribata, Vierco, Olga, Co, Ricardo, Co, Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Daphne, Lagon Sani, Lara Lazatin Lee, Legarda Libana Lim Carchong, Loyola Luis Ro Lumayag, Makapag-Alaroyo, Maceda Madrona, Magsino Malapitan, Mangawang Maniquez, Manuel Marañon, Marcoleta, Marcos, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez Martinez, Mastura, Matibag Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado Revilla, Miguel Momo Morden, Nava, Nisay, Noel Nograles, Juan Fidel Felipe, Nograles Margarita, Nolasco, Aminal Olaso, Olivares, Ongchuan, Ordanes, Ortega, Juano Dizon, Padiernos, Paduano, Paglas Palma, Panaligan, Pancho, Panotes, Pascual, Peña, Pimentel, Plaza, Pleito, Primicia, Agabas, Pumaren, Puno, Kimbo, Rama, Recto, Rehencia, Revilla, Brian, Revilla, Ramonjolo, Reyes, Rilio, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Eulogio, Rodriguez, Rufus, Roman Romero, Romualdez, Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez, Sierra Marie, Romualdo Romulo, Roque, Sagdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Sali, Salimbangon, Salo, Salvame, Santos, Saulug, Silverio, Singson Richel, Singson Ronald, Singson Mihan, Solon Suan, Swansing Horacio, Swansing Micaela, Suarez, Talyado, Tamayo, Tambunting, Tan Joseph, Tan Kit Micah, Tan Reynolds Michael, Tan Samir, Tan Stephen James, Tan Tambut, Tan Chay, Tan Watco, Tariela, Teodoro, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Janko Tieng, Tolentino, Tulfo Jocelyn, Tulfo Ralph Wendell, Tupas Tutorti, Umali, Unabia, Ungab, Valeriano Valmayor Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco Veloso Tuazon, Vergara Versosa, Villa, Villaferte Luis Raymond, Villaferte Miguel Luis, Villanueva Villar, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica Villalagos, Yam Swan, Yap Crisantel, Yap Christopher Son, Yap Edvic, Yap Eric, U Divina Grace, U Jazel Victoria, Yulo Zamora Amparo Maria, Zamora Maria Carmen, Zamora Isabel Maria Zubiri. Second call for consideration and third reading of House Bill Numbers 6913, 6934, 6935. Abante, Abunda, Charon, Advincula, Alvarez, Pantaleon, Ataide, Balindong, Baron, Dabellones, Bosita, Chungalao, Co, Angelica Natasha, Copilar, Collantes de Jesus, Dimoporo, Muhammad Khalid, Duterte, Enverga, Fariñas, Gomez, Gonzalez, Sandro, Legarda, Malapitan, Marcoleta, Martinez, Mendoza, Nograles, Juan Fidel Felipe, Paglas, Panotes, Recto, Romero, Sagarbaria, Salceda, Saulug, Silverio, Singson Richel, Suwan, Tambunting, Tan Reynolds Michael, Tan Samir, Tan Stephen James, Tan Tambut, Tan Chay, Teves Arnolfo, Verzosa, Villa, Villaferte, Miguel Luis, Villanueva, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Yap Edvic, Yap Eric.
With 258 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstention, House Bill numbers 6913, 6934, and 6935 as having been approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration and approval on third reading the following measures: House Bill 7087, House Bill 7088, House Bill 7089, and House Bill 7090, and House Bill 7091, and request the Secretary General to read the title of the measures and call the roll for nominal voting. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection on the part of the House? The chair is none. The Secretary General will read or directed to read the title of the bill of the bill after call and after the roll call of the roll. Sorry, nominal voting.
House Bill Number 7087, an act establishing a College of Medicine in the Southern Luzon State University main campus located in the municipality of Lucban, province of Quezon, to be known as the Southern Luzon State University College of Medicine and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill Number 7088, an act establishing a College of Medicine in the University of Eastern Philippines, located in the municipality of Catarman, province of Northern Samar, to be known as the University of Eastern Philippines College of Medicine and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill Number 7089, an act establishing a College of Medicine in the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines, Cagayan de Oro City Campus, located in Cagayan de Oro City, province of Misamis Oriental, to be known as the University of Science and Technology of Southern Philippines College of Medicine and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill Number 7090, an act establishing a College of Medicine in the Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University, South La Union Campus, located in the municipality of Agoo, Province of La Union, to be known as the Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University, South La Union Campus, College of Medicine, and appropriating funds therefore. House Bill Number 7091, an act converting the campus of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines located in the city of Parañaque into a regular campus of the Polytechnic University of the Philippines to be known as the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Parañaque City Campus, and appropriating funds therefore. Roll call of members in consideration on third reading of House Bill Numbers 7087, 7088, 7089, 7090, and 7091. Abalo Sabante Abunda Charon, Asidre Acop Adyong Advincula Agaraw Alba Albano Almario Almonte Alonte, Alvarez Jose, Alvarez Mercedes, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Amatong Ang Angara Aquino Aquino Magsaysay, Arbison, Arenas, Arrogancia, Asistio, Atayde, Aumentado, Balindong, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Lim, Benitez, Bernos, Billones, Beron, Bolilia, Bondok, Mongalon, Bordado, Bosita, Briones, Brosas, Buhain, Bulot Begtang, Bustos, Cabredo, Cagas, Kahayon, Uy, Calderon, Calixto, Campos, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castro Franz, Castro Jane, Celeste, Chan, Chato, Chua, Chonggalaw, Ko Angelica Natasha, Ko Elizalde, Ko Pilar, Ko Juan Ko Jaime, Ko Juan Ko Mark, Culada, Coliantes, Corvera, Cruz Ambrosio, Cruz Ricardo, Cua, Quaresma, Dagoc, Dalipe, Dalog, Dayang Hirang, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor del Mar de los Santos, Dimaporo Muhammad Kali, Dimaporo City Amina, Dionisio Domingo Duavit Duhali Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian Paul, Ecleo Emano Enverga Escudero Espares, Espina, Estrella, Yudela Fariñas Fernandez, Ferrer Antonio, Ferrer Juliet Marie, Flores Fortes Frasco, Fresnedi, Puente Bella, Galeyos, Garcia Albert, Garcia Dante, Garcia Jose Arturo, Garcia Maria Angela, Garcia Pablo John, Garcia Vincent, Guardiola, Garin Gasataya, Gato, Go Ed Christopher, Go Mark, Goles, Gomez, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Ginto, Gulyas, Gutierrez, Hagidorn, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera, Horebata, Javier, Ko Olga Ara, Ko Ricardo, Ko Wilton, Kunghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon Daphne, Lagon Sani, Lara Lazatin, Liligarda, Libana, Limkaychong, Loyola, Luis Lumayag, Makapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Magsina, Malapitan, Mangawang, Manikis, Manuel, Maranion, Marcoleta, Marcos, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Mastura, Matibag, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Mercado Revilla, Miguel Momo, Mordenava, Nisay, Noel, Nograles, Juan Fidel, Nograles, Margarita, Nolasco, Uwaminal, Olaso, Olivares, Ongchuan, Ordanes, Ortega, Uwano Dizon, Padiernos, Paduano, Paglas, Palma, Panaligan, Pancho, Panotes, Pascual, Peña, Pimentel Plaza, Plato, Primisya Sagabas, Pumaren, Puno, Kimbo, Rama, Recto, Regencia, Revilla Brian, Revilla Ramoncholo, Reyes, Rillo, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez Eulogio, Rodriguez Rufus, Roman Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand Martin, Romualdez Iada Marie, Romualdo Romulo Roque, Sakdalan sa Garbaria, sa Kaluran, Salceda, Sali, Salimbangon, Salo, Salvame, Santos, Saulub, Silverio, Singson Richel, Singson Ronald, Singson Mihan, Solon, Suwan, Suwansing Horacio, Suwansing Micaela Angela, Suarez, Talyado, Tamayo, Tambunting, Tan Joseph, Tan Keith Micah, Tan Reynolds Michael, Tan Samir, Tan Stephen James, Tan Tambut, Tan Chay, Tan Huatco, Tariela, Teodoro, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tieng Tolentino, Tulfo Jocelyn, Tulfo Ralph Wendell, Tupas, Tutorti, Umali, Unabia, Unga, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso Tuazon, Vergara, Versosa, Villa, Villafuerte Luis Raymond, Villafuerte Miguel Luis, Villanueva, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Villago, Yamsuan, Yap Christiantel, Yap Christopherson, Yap Edvic, Yap Eric, Yu Divina Grace, Yu Jazel Victoria, Yulo, Zamora Amparo Maria, Zamora Maria Carmen, Zamora Isabel Maria, Zubiri. Second call for consideration on third reading of House Bill Numbers 7087, 7088, 7089, 7090, and 7091. Abante, Abunda, Acharon, Advincula, Alvarez Pantaleon, Atayde, Balindong, Baronda, Billones, Bosita, Chungalao, Co. Angelica Natasha, Colliantes, De Jesus, Timoporo Muhammad Khalid, Duterte, Enverga, Farinas, Gomez, Gonzales Sandro, Legarda, Malapitan, Marcoleta, Martinez, Mendoza, Nograles Juan Fidel, Paglas, Panotes, Recto, Romero, Sagarbaria, Salceda, Saulug, Silverio, Singson Richel, Suwan, Tambunting, Tan Reynolds Michael, Tan Samir, Tan Stephen James, Tan Tambut, Tanchay, Teves Arnolfo, Villa, Villafuerte Miguel Luis, Villanueva, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Yap Edvic, Yap Eric.
With 259 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, House Bill numbers 7087, 7088, 7089, 7090, and 7091 has having been approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we immediately transmit the said approved measures to Senate, to the Senate. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? There is none. Secretary General is now directed to submit the approved bills in the Senate. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we take up additional reference of business, and may I request that the Secretary General be directed to read the subject matter of the committee reports. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, motion is carried. The Secretary General is now directed to read the title of the proposed committee report or House resolutions.
Additional reference of business, committee reports. Committee report number 330 on House Bill number 7292.
To the Committee on Rules.
Committee report 331 on House Bill number 7294.
To the Committee on Rules.
Committee report number 332 on House Bill number 7295.
To the Committee on Rules.
Committee report number 333 on House Bill number 3092.
Committee on Rules.
Committee report number 334 on House Bill number 7296.
Committee on Rules.
Committee report number 335 on House Bill number 7297.
Committee on Rules.
Committee report number 335 on House Bill number 7299.
Committee on Rules.
Committee report number 337 on House Bill number 7300.
Committee on Rules.
Committee report number 338 on House Bill number 7302.
To the Committee on Rules.
Committee report number 339 on House Bill number 6372.
To the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the rules governing inquiries in aid of legislation, I move that we refer the following House resolutions to the appropriate committees. House Resolution number 758 to the Committee on Foreign Affairs, House Resolution number 762 to the Committee on Appropriations, House Resolution number 771 to the Committee on Agriculture and Food, and House Resolution number 774 to the Committee on Public Order and Safety.
Is there any objection? The chair is none. The following House resolution be referred to the appropriate committees, House Resolution 758, 762, and 771, and 774. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to our rules governing inquiries in aid of legislation, I move that we refer the following speeches delivered on February 13, 2023 to the appropriate committees. The speech of Representative Bordado to the Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts, speech of Representative Castro to the Committee on Health, and the speech of Representative Brosas to the Committee on Agriculture and Food.
There is a motion to refer the following speeches delivered on February 13 to the appropriate committees by Rep. Bordado, Rep. Castro, and Rep. Rosas. Is there any objection? Chair is none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move for this suspension.
Session suspended.
I withdraw my motion.
Session resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adjourn session until Monday, February 27, 2023 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So move, Mr.
Is
Speaker.
there any objection on the motion? The chair is none. Session is adjourned until February 27, Monday at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Thank you.
Yun na tinapos.